Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Sparta Township Planning Board. On behalf of the members of the entire planning board and our professionals, we'd like to thank all the people that are here in person, as well as to those who may be streaming the meeting either now or later on YouTube. This meeting is now called to order. For the record, this meeting is being held on June 19, 2024, at the Sparta Township Municipal Building located at 65 Main Street, Sparta, New Jersey. The time is now 6:36. 6:31. The live stream for this meeting may be viewed on YouTube at www.youtube.com/Sparta Township, which is SPARTATWP. Please note that adequate public meeting of this notice was given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. So before we salute the flag tonight, let's just take a moment to recognize the importance of this day, Juneteenth. Juneteenth is celebrated annually to commemorate the ending of slavery in our United States. Juneteenth has since grown to be recognized and celebrated as a multicultural holiday in many places. With that in mind, I ask that everyone please stand, join our board and our professionals as we proudly begin this meeting with a salute to our nation's flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everybody. And before we take the roll call, I just ask that everyone please join me in a round of applause to congratulate our recently appointed planning board members, Joan Furman and Brian Zimmerman, who have successfully completed and passed the state of New Jersey's basic law course in land law and planning. So congratulations, guys. And with that, Ms. Fox, could you please call the roll?
Justin Canales.
Here.
Ernie Reichstad.
Here.
Christine Dunbar. Here. Mike Sylvester.
Here.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright.
Here.
Chairman Ron Day.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti.
Here.
Joan Furman.
Here.
Jeanette Burke.
Here.
Celeste Luciano.
Here.
Brian Zimmerman.
Here.
Okay, thank you. All right, so tonight we'll be starting off by holding an executive session to have attorney-client privilege communications pertaining to ONV1 Holdings LLC versus Sparta Township Planning Board, and also to Mr. Adrian Merman versus the Sparta Township Planning Board, Travis Surf, PA, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, trading as Sparta Veterinary Associates and Urgent Care, and HCS Holdings LLC. Authorization to hold the executive session is set forth in resolution number 2024.12. Mr. Brady will be acting as the attorney record for this executive session, so welcome, Mr. Brady, and please let the record show that Mr. Collins has recused himself on this matter. So may I have a motion to approve resolution number 2024.12-12?
Make a motion.
Dory, roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti.
Yes.
Jeanette Burke.
Yes.
Christine Dunbar.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright.
Yes.
Joan Furman.
Yes.
Justin Canales.
Yes.
Celeste Luciano.
Yes.
Ernie Reichstad.
Yes.
Mike Sylvester.
Yes.
Brian Zimmerman.
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day.
Yes. All right, the motion to approve 2024-12 is passed. The board will now be going into an executive session. So I'm going to ask that members of the public, if you could step out, and our plan is to be back in session as close to 7 as we can get there. Okay, thank you.
This,
Sure.
the motion to return?
Welcome back.
I noticed that these microphones, you're on Zoom, they hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Yep. Okay, could I have a motion to go back into public session?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
May I have a roll call?
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Jeanette Burke. Yes. Christine Dunbar. Yes. Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Joan Furman,
Yes.
Justin Canales.
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Ernie Ragsdad,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester,
Yes.
Brian Zimmerman,
Yes.
Chairman Ronde.
Yes. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We just concluded the executive session. There was no action taken, so this would now bring us into the public hearing portion of the meeting. So when you look at the agenda, I just want to acknowledge Dory for all her work, Dory and Mr. Tom for, helping us work through the many items we have on our agenda. So looking at what's on the agenda now, we show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hearings for tonight. I know we have some updates. Can someone just give us an update on where we are and which ones have been pushed and what we need to do?
Tom, do you want me to take that? We have application PB 24-715, Behringer Corporation, 10 Aaron Way. That will be carried to the June 26th meeting. And we also have PB 24-717, Lakeland Bank. That too has been carried to the June 26th meeting.
Tom, would you mind? Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So in terms of tonight, that leaves us with Bless Holdings first. We'll do from there, hopefully move into JP Morgan Chase Bank. From there, we'll probably move into Thor Labs. And then we'll look into possibly starting JVP Ventures, time permitting. Anybody have any questions? Does anybody from any of the other applications wish to maybe rethink if you want to stay for tonight or not? Okay, we'll proceed. Okay, so first application we heard is Planning Board Application 708, submitted by Plus Holdings LLC. This is being carried from May 15 meeting. The application is for an apartment building in the TCC zone. Welcome back, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, if this works, Brian Chakowski, Cleary, Jacoby, Alfieri, and Jacobs on behalf of the applicant Plus Holdings. I know you have a heavy agenda. We've been here a while, so I'll bring you up to speed where we were at. Last hearing on May 15th, we heard testimony from Robert McNerney and Callisto Burton. We stopped Callisto Burton's testimony after board questions. Mr. Simmons indicated at that point in time that Mr. Burton, with the revised site plan, provided a revised site plan exhibit, which was marked as A6, which was the colored version of the site plan through May 15th. So Mr. Simmons was satisfied. We just need to finish up with Mr. Burton if there were any additional board questions or public questions. In addition, based upon feedback we received, We did change the roof line of the building and submitted revised renderings to the board. Those were dropped off on Monday. So we do have a full-size rendering that we could mark through Mr. McNerney's testimony. And he also has brought some samples of the hardy plank. So hopefully we won't spend a lot of time and we can show you what we're proposing to do.
So there were new renderings dropped off on Monday.
It should be in your packet.
In the packet.
And what that does, Mr. Chairman, is that we added a roof line around all four sides, or I should say the remaining three sides of the building. And we added some dormer amenities to the rear and the sides of the building as was requested by the board. So you do have your,
And the shutters,
the shutters, yes, I
all
remember.
the shutters.
Right.
And I don't know if you heard me, Mr. Chairman, when you said, welcome back. I said, I started this when it was snowing. So unless there are any questions, Mr. Chairman, we could turn it over to Mr. Burton for any additional questions.
Okay, so, just, if I can, just based on the new renderings, I'd like to just give the professionals a chance to see if they have any questions relative to the
Well,
new rendering.
Mr. McNerney will testify to that. I just wanted to finish with Mr.
Okay,
Burton. Certainly,
okay.
he'll be up here, explain what was done, the differences, and
Okay.
then we can certainly get into those questions at that time.
All right, so I guess the way we left it last time was the questions are now with the dais here, the board, and then we'll open up to the public.
Right, there were some board questions, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if there were any, whether those were completed, at the 15th here.
Okay.
Just
So-
the
so-
professionals.
So relative to Mr. Burton's last testimony, why don't we start, Justin, I'm going to start down your end this time. Any questions that you have?
No, no questions.
So just to be clear, we're focusing on engineering now, not architecture?
Correct.
Correct.
I don't want to go there.
No questions. With the updated roof line, does that change where the air conditioning units or anything regarding the HVAC systems?
They'll explain it, but I think the answer is no.
That's more architecture than engineering?
Yeah,
Sorry.
because that's on the roof, the condensers.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Brian, start at your end.
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Celeste?
Not currently. I have to apologize. Some of us are missing the new rendering and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
We want to
I don't
pass
have it either.
them down?
You have questions? All right, I was just going to ask one. And it was a question that came from an audience member last time to the architect, and the architect deferred to the civil engineer. So on their behalf, I would just like to pose it. They said that there was, the fire trucks cannot get in the back of the building. There is no access for it.
Correct.
So could you just please explain if there is a fire in the rear of the building, how it would be accessed?
Well, the fire truck gets to the front of the building. The building code doesn't require access all around the building because the building is fully sprinklered. The purpose of the sprinkler system is so people can evacuate. And that's what it is. So they can walk around the back, they could bring a ladder around the back, but they can't bring a truck. And it's not required by code.
Okay. And the hose can reach, or they would go through the building?
Yes. Yeah, well, like I said, there's a sprinkler system and a standpipe system, and I think we have a fire department
But
connection in the
the
front.
standpipe is in the front?
Yeah.
Okay, so just worrying about the water pressure in the back if you had to bring a hose that far. I don't know. I just thought it was a good question, so I was just going to ask it on their
Right, but
behalf.
before we get to construction documents, I mean, it's got to get reviewed by the
Yeah.
building department, and plumbing and fire code would all be part of that.
All right, thank you.
You might have answered this, but if you did, I forgot the answer to it, the question. Can you just describe the screening plan for the trash area? Just to visual, I know it moved recently, last time it had moved. Can you just describe how it, where it is and how it's going to be screened?
Yes, so as last time we came in, in addressing the question about access or pedestrian access, we rearranged the parking lot a little bit. So we have a double trash enclosure that's masonry construction with a gate in the front, and it's now located, well, opposite the building in the lower right corner of the parking lot. And as I said, that'll be masonry, and this area downhill is pretty wooded, so we have a sidewalk coming up to it and a sidewalk in front for pedestrian access, but the rest is wooded, so you're really not going to see it from the road coming up. There's, and we planted a couple of evergreens alongside of it. It's far, now it's far from the building, so it doesn't really require a lot more screening.
Okay. Is that a dumpster that sits behind there?
Yeah, there's two dumpsters inside the trash enclosure.
Okay.
One for recycling, that's if we do recycling, and one for garbage,
Yeah, okay. And how high is the wall?
6 feet.
6 feet, okay,
which is standard.
okay. Also, I have a more general question, and I'm not sure, Mr. Collins, maybe you can direct me if this is appropriate now. I did want to go revisit the school bus question and the school kids and the bus stop and the police report. Is that appropriate for now, or would you prefer to handle this later on?
No, it's fine now.
Yeah. Okay. So I reread the police report, that there's no bus stop there. Can you just talk through again how this will work, how you envision this working for children that have to go to school and get on the
The
bus?
reality is there is a bus stop at the bottom of the hill. And it happens to be in the parking lot of the retail building next door to the site. And that's how it operates now, and it serves the area, and that's how it would serve this building. So again, that's the reality, that the bus park's there. And so they can, depending on the age, older children would walk down the sidewalk, maybe younger kids are in bad weather, the parents would bring them down or walk down with them. And they have their opportunity, if they park, they can't park in this driveway, it's not wide enough for parking. So either they wait in one of the parking lots like the area neighborhood does, while the bus comes.
Okay, so my understanding is not really official, it's not a bus stop, but you're saying you understand the bus stops there?
The bus goes there. Yeah, it's not a New Jersey Transit bus
Right,
stop.
right.
It's a school bus stop, and they pick where they park, where they stop.
Yeah.
So, and our, Mr. McNerney contacted the school to find out where they stop, because we didn't know at the time that the bus stops right in front of the site.
So I understand there's a bus stop across the street or down the road a little bit, right? An official bus stop,
Oh,
that's
maybe.
what I understand.
Well, we also have asked the applicant, and I believe the applicant is willing to allow Title 39 to apply to the parking lot and the driveway. That means motor vehicle enforcement is possible. And the applicant also indicated willingness to ask the Board of Education to allow the bus to come on the property and go up to the front door. But that's totally within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education, which is an independent agency or governmental entity, independent of the township and the planning board. So whether they'll do that is really their discretionary determination, and that would be a future event, because it wouldn't even happen until there were school-age people living in the building.
Thank you, Mr. Collins, that saved me.
Isn't that correct,
That
Mr.
is
Chagowski?
correct.
Okay. So just to be clear, Mr. Collins, part of the MLUL is the safety in a school bus and kids getting to the school bus. Is that
Not exactly.
part of the application? Is that part of the applicant's responsibility to ensure that or to deliver that?
No, not the Board of Education's busing.
I mean, just in general, the fact that kids might live there and have to get to a bus, is that part of the,
No, it's the Board of Ed determination of where buses will stop.
okay.
That's why sometimes they do go on private property and sometimes they do not go on private property. The townhouse development has arranged for school buses to go on the private property at the townhouse development. It is up to the Board of Ed
And if they would do that, it would be quite good. And
Yeah.
because there's circumnavigation of the parking lot, it looks quite feasible to do that.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Yes.
May I just chime in since we're on this topic? So I think we're leaving an open end to how the children are going to be safely picked up from this area. And I'm reading a report right now that says, it's from the Kurt Morris Police Traffic Engineer, Sparta. And it says, it was stated at the last meeting that adjacent property parking lot is used as a bus stop, which is false. There are no bus stops located in parking lots. There is, in fact, a bus stop on the side of the Sparta Avenue for a few children who live in apartments that are there nearby. This proposed apartment complex has the potential for more children in need of a school bus. There is currently no proposed location for a bus stop. Currently, no proposed
Where that
for this complex. So this could lead to parents parking their vehicles either in the driveway or in private parking lots, which could possibly not be permitted by the adjacent building owners.
Well, if I may, is that report is incorrect because we know from the email from the Board of Ed, from the person from bus operations, that this is where the bus stops. In addition, I'd be happy to have the officer here to ask him questions because I don't know whether he's competent to give those opinions. He's giving opinions without a basis in any fact. So certainly what you heard from Mr. Collins, we've agreed to work with the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed has their bus stop in that parking area downhill from this development, and that's what's being utilized. That's all we can tell you.
Well, Mr. Collins has indicated that this is a school board situation that they need to arrange. I would feel a lot better if I could read something from them that assured that there was a safe passage for the kids to and from school.
Our obligation is to provide pedestrian access to the street, and we have that. And we redesigned the site last time to make sure you were all happy with the pedestrian access. So that's our obligation, and this happens on many developments. Where do the bus stops? They don't come onto private property generally, and they have to go to the street. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I just want to ease your mind that it's really not, you don't have to worry about that. I shouldn't say that. You want to worry about it, but it's not the purview of this board to get into that. As long as we have safe access to the street, we've met our obligation.
Well, my concern is that the children have safe passage.
Any other questions?
Yeah, since we're on this subject. So it's the assertion that there is safe passage right now, that children are boarding a bus safely right now to get to and from school, yes?
Yes, that's what we've seen, and that's what we've been told.
Okay, and you have documentation from the Board of Ed saying that the bus stops in that parking lot.
That's what the email said that Mr. McNerney testified to
that
2 meetings ago,
You
correct?
could produce if someone here
Right.
was
We did
was
provide a copy of
uncomfortable.
the email to the reporter from Tappan to Sparta at that time, so I don't have the copy with me.
Not a
But
problem.
that was what was testified to under oath by Mr. McNerney.
Just want to make sure so that, when we're talking about these things, that there is an existing facility for children. It's not that, and if I'm hearing what you've said correctly, that you are making the assertion that you are going to be working with the Board of Ed in the hope that they will change what they're doing and come up onto the property. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Typically, what will happen is bus routes are determined at the beginning of the school year based upon the demand of the children and the distance of the children. So if there is one child living here, I doubt that they would send the bus. If there are 10 children living here that are attending the school, then they probably would send the bus up as more of a convenience for the bus driver than anyone else.
Right.
But that's to be determined by the Board of Ed as part of their planning process prior to the beginning of the school year. As we've indicated, we've provided that passageway that is probably the safest from what currently exists for children in other areas of that location in order for people to get. And as Mr. McNerney testified, the world is a lot different today from when I was a kid. And what happens is parents drive their children to the bus stop or accompany them to the bus stop. So that's usually, if we're concerned about safety, it's not that children are walking by themselves.
No, and completely understood. And from your statement, you know, if you do work with the Board of Ed and they do see that there are 10 children, that then no one is going to be coming down the hill because the bus will be going up onto the property, pick them up. So if we're talking about 1 or 2 parents that are bringing children down, I guess that's one thing. But the point is that you're working with the Board of Ed just to kind of allay anybody's fear. There is an existing facility. You are working with the Board of Ed. I'm just clarifying that I've heard all of these things clearly.
Right, that's correct. Yes, and we're cleaning up the crosswalks on the street, just to better define the pedestrian walkway.
Thank you.
Just as a follow-up to that, if I remember correctly, I think there was a point at one of the previous meetings where you had offered that if necessary, that the buses would be allowed on the property to pick up.
That is correct.
Since we're on child safety, I have one other question. I'm not sure if this really goes to you or not, though, but it was brought up last month that if children are going to be living on the premises, that they would or could be given window guards. How would a person know about that if they're moving in with a child? How would they know to ask?
Ask Mr. McNerney, he'll be up next.
Okay.
That's building management. Yes. And I think he said we would.
Yes, but I just didn't know the process. Thank you.
It's on the application.
Okay. Any other questions on the dais? All right, seeing none, I guess we open up to the public. For if the public has any questions relating to the testimony that's been given from Mr. Burton?
Yeah, hi, Mike Devine, Oak Parkway. I haven't been in every meeting. I'm still confused about the bus stuff. I apologize. Can I talk in terms that I'm familiar with? You say it's going to go in and park there. Is that behind where the Burger King is, behind where the bagel store is? Is that the lot you're talking about?
Yes.
So the bus will go in and park there?
It's not, it will, it is.
It is, okay.
does. It's not because of this application. This part of this application, we did research and we found out where the bus stops for the neighborhood and it parks,
How many buses per day do that?
I imagine, well, depends on the school. You have the elementary school. I don't know if the high school has a different bus, so.
Will cars be turning both left and right into your property from Sparta Avenue
Yes,
and vice versa coming out?
yes,
Do you have a sense of the impact on traffic during heavy traffic times?
yes. At the last meeting, or maybe the meeting before, we discussed traffic. And the board engineer also reviewed the traffic. Okay. And although this is a residential project, it's not like it's a 7-Eleven or it's not a high generating traffic facility. So there will be an impact, but it's a minimal impact and it's well within the capacity of the street.
What's there now, as I recall, once you get beyond the parking lot, it's a fairly narrow roadway up to where your building will be.
Correct.
So you're saying if they choose to, the bus can go up that road to pick up the children?
Yes.
How will they get out then? Back out, or is there a way to turn around?
On the board, on the easel is Exhibit A6 from last month. And you can see there's a parking lot there and it's been designed for the fire truck to make the turnaround so the school bus can make the turn.
Okay, I had questions about the height of the building. Is that you or is that a subsequent?
That would be the next witness.
Okay, thanks.
Kathy Ebbinghaus, Scudder's Road. I've already been sworn in. I've just been scribbling some notes, so give me a second to make sure I have the right questions for the right witness, please.
Kathy, if you could, we can, I can't hear you up here.
You can't hear? Is it working? Oh, okay. Sorry. You mentioned in your testimony crosswalks previously. Can you talk more about that? Was that regarding the property itself or on the street?
There was at one time a crosswalk along the sidewalk on Sparta Avenue from the Burger King to 155 across the site. And it's all worn out and it's not well defined. So on our plan and part of our application to the DOT would be to restripe the crosswalk.
When you say 155, can you clarify what that
Sorry,
means?
I said 155, I meant 55. That's the building.
55.
Looking at the site, it would be the building on the left, on the shopping centers.
Okay, I don't know that I'm
Where the Burger King's on
exactly.
the right, it's on the other side of the driveway.
Okay. So you mean to say on the public right away?
Right, in the public right of way, we're going to restripe the crosswalk
And is that across the road itself or
No,
just
no.
on the sidewalk?
along the sidewalk. The driveways abut each other, which is, so instead of walking across a driveway to a sidewalk to a driveway, we have two driveways side by side. So we're going to redefine the crosswalk across the two driveways for safety.
Okay, I think I understand that better. Thank you. This is working. Materials, walkways. You mentioned that you felt or testified that the officer was not competent to give an opinion on traffic. Is that correct?
I never said anything like that.
These are questions for the engineer. That was my statement.
Okay.
And you also misconstrued the statement. The officer is not competent to make statements about how many children will be generated by a particular project.
I don't think that was what was in the letter. I don't think there was any assertion as to how many children. Is that right?
This is not the appropriate discussion for the questioner. You just ask questions. of
I'm
this
asking
witness.
about his testimony.
He's not testifying. The time is to ask Mr. Burton questions.
But a statement was made during this hearing that I'm
That's,
questioning.
you have to ask, Mr. Chukowski is not testifying. He's an attorney representing the
perhaps he
applicant.
shouldn't
You
give
have
his
to ask
opinion.
questions of Mr. Burton. If you have any more, please ask them.
Okay. You mentioned the Tap into Sparta article calling out that, can you clarify what the Tap into Sparta article called out?
I did not testify about that. I testified about engineering issues
Okay.
and the site design.
Engineering and site, but we've been talking about children and the buses. Am I not allowed to talk about children and buses too?
Well, ask a question and we'll see.
Well, that's what it seems like. I'm being told I can't ask questions about what is being discussed during this
Kathy, if we can,
testimony.
if you have a question, let's ask the question, and
Okay.
if they object to it, then the people can object to it, and we'll make a ruling.
It seems like your testimony is relying on an assumption that one child means that there's no bus service. Is that correct?
No, my testimony was that we provide access to the street for children or a child or adults.
What I heard, what I think I heard, and you can correct me, is if there's one child, you would expect that child to be driven and that no bus service would be provided by our school district. Is that true?
I did not testify to anything along those
Mr.
lines.
Chairman, if I may just object to the whole line of questioning, because the person is misconstruing statements that I have made and witness testimony.
So Tom, help
So
me.
I did make statements, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I object to the officer's opinion. If he wants to render an opinion, he can certainly come here. But he is not competent to provide an opinion as to number of school children that will be provided. I do object that he made a statement that the bus stop was false. what was testified to Mr. McNerney, by Mr. McNerney, and that we provided the email, which is sitting in front of me now, that I will be happy to read. However, June Macco, the transportation supervisor, indicates we currently have a bus stop at 55 Sparta Avenue. So hopefully that ends the question. My problem with the officer's report is he never checked with the Board of Ed. He's making assumptions. So that's where we are at.
Can I interrupt you just for 1 second, just for a point of information? Corporal Morris is the president of the Board of Education in town. Just wanted to let you know. So whether or not he's familiar or unfamiliar with the bus stops, I'm just putting that out there.
As I said, the transportation supervisor indicated where the bus stop was. When we were here in March, Mr. McNerney showed the pictures of the bus stop in that location.
And those, the pictures that were submitted during that testimony were of a parking lot where a bus was parked.
So if I can, I want to get back to.
Okay.
Ask a question.
My question
and then we'll
is,
give an answer. And
is-
then
okay.
we go from there.
so is what was testified to and brought forth as evidence of what he's mentioning, the pictures that were submitted
You're asking
of
this
this bus
question
stop?
of the applicant.
I'm not sure who I'm asking. I don't know who I should
May I
be
interject
asking.
for 1 second, Tom? And this is for a question for you. There's testimony and there's been some statements made in the discussion. Does the public have a right to, I know we got to direct the questions to the professional that's testifying, but there were comments made and some questions from the board that raised comments and questions. Does the public have a right to speak on that based on what they've just heard?
When this witness and the next witness are done, the public testimony will begin. So the answer is yes.
So Catherine,
After the witnesses are done, but Kathy can ask questions of Mr. Burton for testimony, on cross-examination for testimony that he has made on direct testimony. So he should do what the chairman said, which is ask a particular question of Mr. Burton and proceed.
So I believe Mr. Burton testified about an elementary school. Is that correct?
No, someone asked a question about how many buses, and I said, I don't know. I imagine the elementary school comes. I don't know if the high school has a separate bus
You're
route.
unaware of how many schools are in this district. Is
That's what I
that
said.
correct?
That's what I said.
Okay. So then, okay. I'm gonna hold my opinion on that. I suppose that's all I have based on what was testified at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Beth Broderick, North Shore. I have a question. Is the parking lot where Augie's Bagels private or public?
I imagine it's a private parking lot.
So wouldn't the owner of that parking lot have some input into whether there is a bus stop, whether it's official or unofficial?
This is.
And I have another follow-up question
Okay,
as well.
This is a discussion with the Board of Education and another property.
Okay, here's my
owner.
next
It's-
question.
Okay.
If there is a bus stop, like you said there was in that parking lot, is busing children or having children could be driven down from your proposed building going to create a safety issue if they are being dropped off in a parking lot that has a busy bagel place in the morning? And is that going to create a legal safety issue? Or if, God forbid, somebody is going to the bagel place and a child is getting out of mommy's car and gets hit by somebody when they're going to the school bus? Let me guess. I have to go ask somebody else because you didn't
So let
testify.
him answer, let him answer.
I can answer the question that people will work and figure it out. But the real answer is that's an off-site condition. Our obligation is to provide access to the street. That's the obligation of this application. And we're getting caught up on the school issue because it's a point you can pick at. but our obligation is to get safe access to the street. I imagine that people will use common sense and park in the lot, not in the way, not to block the driveway or have children walking in front of passing cars.
Okay, I have a few comments like Kathy does about that, but I don't want to be attacked verbally. But here's my next question regarding the fire truck and the property where you're suggesting that you build this building. You said that code does not dictate that they need to bring the fire truck around to the back of the building.
Correct.
And the standpipe would be in the front. Has any consideration given to going a little bit above and beyond what the code dictates for the safety of your possible residents or the residents in your proposed building?
It's not necessary because the project will meet all the fire codes.
Okay.
Okay, any other members of the public? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I was handed additional copies of the renderings. I don't know if people need
Yes, please.
additional
yeah, I think
renderings.
it'd be, I think my friend
If I
brought up
may,
the computer for me, but anybody else need a copy of?
Actually, we need two over
I
here.
think there's 3 or 4 copies, so I'll just hand them
Thank
up
you.
here.
Thank you.
Bob, you want to come up?
Thank you, friend.
Thank you.
Both sides. Oh, good.
Let's mark it as an next exhibit, gentlemen.
A7.
A7.
There's a front perspective and the 3 other elevations. Tom, you want to mark them as one together or mark it A7, A8?
I guess make it A7 and A8 so you can refer to them separately. Thank you. McNerney, you understand you're still under oath, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Need help. Please don't fix the easel, please. It's broken. Put that up. So, Mr. McNerney, you've testified at all the hearings with respect to this matter, correct?
Yes, I have.
All right, and at the last hearing, there were some recommendations made by the board with respect to certain design elements of the building, am I correct?
That is correct.
What did we just mark as A7?
A7 is a revised front elevation of the building whereby we added a mansard roof across the front to further shield from the air conditioner compressors that'll be on the roof, and it runs across the whole front.
Besides the mansard roof, is the design of the building unchanged? Or
No.
I should say the front facade unchanged from what was testified to previously.
The only change we made was to add the mansard roof.
Okay. Now, if you could go to A8, please, and tell the board what that is.
In reviewing the roof lines, although the board didn't ask for the mansard on the rear, we thought it would be a better look to wrap the whole building with a mansard, and that's what we did. In addition, we put dormers on the mansard on each side to break that up as requested, and we also added shutters to all the windows on the sides.
And at the last hearing, the board was asking about materials. Did you bring some color samples and tell us, you know, what those samples, where they would be? I think you testified as to the various building materials. So if you can tell us what these samples are and where they will be.
Yes. As I testified prior, the siding will be made of a hardy plank siding, and a big question came to, well, what color? So, if you hold that.
Yep.
So I have with me tonight 5 colors, one of which we will select to put on the building. So, here are the colors. No argument, here are the colors. So,
So
if you want the gray, we'll do the gray with white trim. We'll do tan with white trim. We'll do brownish dark with white trim, or something in between. This one's called Monterey Taupe.
So there was a concern that the building looked a little green, so we decided that we have a number of color options.
Thank you, gentlemen. So that.
Light green, we also have green.
Thank you, gentlemen. That'll be A9,
There would be 5 colors,
5
samples
colors.
of hardy plank.
right.
And Mr. McNerney, besides the design changes, that's all that changed? None of the interior of the building has changed at all?
No, it hasn't.
Okay. Now, I believe there was a question about safety screening children at windows. Could you answer that question?
Yes, these types of apartments are governed under DCA, Department of Community Affairs. And as a regulation, they do initial inspection once the building's built. And if they're children that are occupying space, it's mandatory to put the screening on the windows. In addition, it's also required that a peephole in every door, every entry door to the apartment is installed. In addition, it's also requiring us to put a bolt and a chain lock on every door. So after we build it, then they come 5 years, on the 5th year anniversary, they do another inspection. And then every year after that, they inspect. In addition, we also have the elevator company inspecting on an annual basis.
I have no other questions for Mr. McNerney.
All right, let me go to the professionals. Mrs. Simmons, we'll start with you. Any questions?
No, sir, not at this time.
Catherine?
I
Where
only
is
have-
Catherine?
Don't you ditch us? Heard the voice.
Put her in the penalty box.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the sign, but no, I have it on my screen, so don't worry. I have a laptop screen. Can you just describe the south and north elevations, the side elevations essentially? There appear to be, you know, the way the windows are proposed, just seems a little bit unusual as far as the way that I think it's a double loaded corridor.
Well, first off, some of those windows are in corridor, but more importantly, the 3 windows that are located on the south side, that's the gym. So we have windows along the side and in the front as well, here, this end. So that's the gym, so we have plenty of light coming into the gym.
Okay. I found that the placement of the windows so close together and not really symmetrical didn't seem to line up with the apartment units. So I was just curious if there were any reason for that.
No, plus we wanted room enough to fit the shutters.
Okay. Bring it back to the dais.
I just have one question. On the west elevation, why did you choose not to put dormers on the west elevation?
Because it's the back of the building looking into the woods.
Quick question. So with the new roof line, does that change the height of the building? Because I see that there's on A7.
No, it doesn't. The building height hasn't changed. It's 46 inches, 46 feet, 11 inches to the highest part.
Okay. Only because I'm looking at that one center, yeah, I'm looking at the one center piece here, just wanted to, because that seems to be a little bit higher on A7. The cupola, yeah, above the, thank you. I was trying to think of the word.
Of the gables, it's 40, what is it, 46. 46 feet, 11 inches.
That was it, thank you.
I guess I'd just like to thank you for making some of these changes. I think that they are good design changes. It looks much better, especially the roof line. I'd just like to address one question that did come up last time, and that was about the balconies, the PVC balconies and how they're toxic in fire. Would there be any objection to putting different material?
We haven't made that decision yet. They could be PVC, which PVC slides over frame wood posts. It could be wrought iron. It could be any number of materials. But to say that the PVC is something that is flammable, that's just ridiculous.
Not flammable, toxic.
Toxic, whatever. In order to be toxic, it has to be on fire, right?
Yes.
That was the point.
So would you have any objection to not using the PVC? Since you said that you could use other materials.
We could.
Thank you.
Well done. Okay. Follow-up question to our planner, Catherine. The south and north elevations are, just to clarify, is the window alignment due to where the interior hallways are on the second, third, and fourth floor?
Okay. Both windows, the two windows on each of the floors add light to the hallways. And this is the main center hallway, so you can see from one side to the other. And these three windows, which are located to the front of the hallway windows, are for the stairwell, so that we have some natural light in the stairwell.
I see. Okay. Just a question on the roof in general now, and this actually is directed at our professional planner and our attorney, so Catherine and Tom. Seeing this in these new designs, is this a pitched roof, and is this now what are your thoughts on this meeting the ordinance? Catherine, if you want to go first.
Give me 1 second to respond. The design, in my supplementary memo, I brought up some of the architectural design requirements in the zone, or, for the town center zones. And one of those requirements, or one of those design standards, is that roof lines shall be varied with a combination of heights to provide further visual relief. The use of chimneys, cupolas, dormers shall be used for further enhancement. So I do think that it probably, is in furtherance of those standards. But as far as being a flat roof as it originally was proposed, I think it's much different. A mansard roof has some pitch to it, has some, some more treatment to it, and the dormers definitely do, I think, add to that as well for in conformance with the design standards that I brought up in the last memo.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not speaking to the mic. I'm like tucked away down here.
Mr. Collins, did you have any thoughts?
Catherine is correct, and actually, the ordinance does require the pitching of the roof in the town center commercial zone, which this is in. The design standards require a residential appearance roof with a pitch, and it actually mentions the use of mansard to deal with to avoid an appearance of a flat roof. And if you can remember, there are some other buildings that have done that. Even I think it's called the Health Center, or I think it's 89 Sparta Avenue, where the hospital built the doctor's offices, is built with a mansard to give an appearance that hides the flat roof behind it. The applicant has been cooperative enough to follow that type of residential appearance design in the roof pitch now on all four sides, which is good. And the cupola and the dormers and similar features are a way to break up a mansard, and that's what they've done. So this complies with the language of the ordinance, but the board would have to make the determination whether you're satisfied it complies with the ordinance.
Okay.
Just understand this, we've been here many months, we've taken your comments, in consideration of your comments, we've made these changes. We're trying to work with the township to come up with something that's nice for the town.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, two questions that I have is, regard to the new roof line, new mansard, how tall is that? And what materials are being used there?
That would be asphalt shingles covered, and the mansard itself measures approximately 5 feet.
Okay, thank you. The second question is kind of along the lines where I think people have talked about it. When I look at the south and the north elevation, would it be difficult, and would you be willing to consider moving those windows apart just to give them the side a more balanced look, or is that a hard thing to do?
Understand, this window lets light into the main corridor.
I understand.
All the way down.
Yeah.
And this is into the stairwell that goes up this way. So to move them, it isn't really feasible. You know, we want to provide light into the corridor, and we also want to provide light in the main hallway, so.
Okay.
It doesn't work out in the best design, but again, these are the ends of the building. So they're not going to be as visible as the front.
Ron, I'm still, now this is the third question on this. I think my question was more related to, are there windows lacking for the apartment units? Or, I know that there's light, I know those windows are intended to light the corridor and the main hallway. That's great. But my question was more, does it line up with the apartment units to have more than just the front or back facing windows?
Can I approach?
I can pull it up actually, if you just tell me the sheet number.
I don't even know. Where's it?
So you've got a stairwell.
Yes, so here's the one window and here's the other window. That's the first floor, actually.
And this is a bedroom with a single window along
Right.
the rear.
Sense?
It makes sense. There's a lot of other things going on, especially on give me 1 second, which elevation? On the south side elevation, they have the exercise room, which they've proposed, those 3 windows on the second floor. And then above that is storage closets, which wouldn't have, the need, they'll just have, internal light. There, on the north side elevation, there are bedrooms adjacent. There's a stairwell corridor to the east. So the front portion of the building, there's a stairwell corridor, so that is getting light from that single window. So there's no need for a window, closer east, closer to the front. And in the back, there are bedrooms proposed along that more western portion, the rear side of the building. However, they do have windows facing west. So, you could add a corner have 2 windows into that bedroom, but as long as they have some window, in the bedroom, that kind of satisfies my concern. I was more asking the applicant if they had windows and what lined up with those, wall facades, to make sure they had adequate, light.
All right, thank you. Okay, no other questions? Bill?
No, sir.
Christine?
Good.
No.
What was the primary color you guys had as the first option? Just logistically, how do we choose?
To be honest with you, we didn't even pick a primary color. We thought like a beige color. But then we got the samples and we kind of like this one. This is more modern with the white shutters, white trim. So, but I think the point is I'm bringing these colors to show the board so that nothing is offensive as far as if we go with any one of these.
I have the same problem at home. I have to bring 5 colors. Just curious how if anybody has any hard feelings on that or not.
Can we see those?
Yeah.
Yes, let's say 9, 5 colors.
You might get 11 votes.
We're going to keep them in the planning department, Dory. You're going to have to figure out where to store those.
But, you can pass them, it's going to be their decision, so thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
The actual material, right?
Yeah, this is
That-
the actual
that-
material.
Those are samples of the hardy board, which is, Bob, why don't you describe what hardy board is? So I'm not testifying.
Yes, the hardy plank is a composite shingle or clapboard, and it's durable. It comes pre-finished. You don't have to paint it, and it lasts forever. And because we're building these buildings to keep, we want to put the best siding on and not do vinyl or something like that.
They used to put a 50-year warranty on that back
do
in the
too.
70s. Do they still have that?
I don't know if it's 50, but I know it's at least
Yeah,
25.
this is going to
Okay.
stick out way too much when you see it from the.
Could I make a suggestion just to keep this moving? Unless anyone has any other questions while this is passing down the dais here, I'd like to maybe open it up to the public to get questions going, any questions the public may have.
And Mr. Chairman, you could do
It's okay if
questions.
anyone has questions on the,
Mr. Chairman, you could also open it up to questions and testimony now because they're done their witnesses.
okay, so just help explain that, just so,
Sure, now that the applicant's testimony has completed, it's possible for the interested parties to, well, first of all, be sworn if they haven't been sworn before, and to both ask questions of Mr. McNerney and to make their final testimony. And after the final testimony of the public, unless there's some rebuttal by the applicant, the board will be deciding the matter. So, Mike, were you previously sworn in this case? Okay. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please state your name and address again,
Mike
Mike.
Devine, Oak Parkway. I have a few questions, but I want to make a few comments up front, if you don't mind. You guys are obviously on edge and maybe on the brink of being angry. I can understand it. You've been here many times. This is your job. You want to get the building built. I hope you also appreciate if this building goes up and it's a safety problem or whatever, if it's out of touch with the architecture of the town, we live with it. You're going to the next project. So if you're impatient, that's tough, okay?
I want to say right now, I'm one of the most patient men you could ever meet.
Well, that's not obvious,
It wasn't me that was screaming or yelling back and forth.
okay? The other point is, there was a statement clearly made that our traffic engineer, who up to this point, I believe, has been generally accepted, without any basis, the statement was made that he was not competent to do ABC. I forget what ABC was. Now, I found that to be offensive. When you guys come up to testify, we have to accept your credentials. Now, if you said, I'd like to talk to Corporal Morris and accept his credentials, that's totally valid. with no basis to make a statement that he's incompetent to do something, I think is offensive and inappropriate. The other point is, with all the contact you supposedly have had with the Board of Education, you didn't even know who the chairman of the Board of Education was. That makes me a little concerned about the degree of interaction you've actually had with
Can
him.
I comment on that?
Sure.
I went to the Board of Ed and told them what I was looking to do. And they advised me to go down to the bus depot by the high school and speak to the head of operations there. That's what I did.
You ever talk to the chairman of the Board of Education or encounter him at all?
To talk to the operations director,
Who directed you?
someone in the Board of Ed that
Okay.
answered the door.
Okay. We've talked a lot about the height of the building. If you go up to the hill, face onto your building and go straight through and continue, what do you hit? The cemetery? What's back there? I know there's woods immediately there. What do you hit if you continue?
Which director? Have you ever been to the site?
Many times.
Okay, the cemetery is off the front end of the building, not the back end. So you look into the cemetery, you look into the conservation area. That was part of the development when they did the Stop and Shop. And then immediately to the rear of the building is a site, wooded site that was formerly, I guess they tried to put in a gas station or convenience store.
Now, of the adjacent sites, are there any that are zoned in such a way that they have the equivalent structure as what you're building?
I don't know.
Anybody know?
Yes. The adjacent site to the left that he mentioned as being a site of actually was a site of an approval of a convenience store and a denial of a Wawa, is in the same zone. So they have the maps.
Does that?
That's behind, to give it a context, that's the lot that's behind the pharmacy on the corner of 517 and Bart Avenue.
Okay. This building is 48 feet high, and we've talked about this before,
4611.
4611. And are you actually up a little rise or local rise in that area?
We're at the crest of the mountain, shall you call it? Yeah.
So with or without leaves on the trees, what's the visibility from a 360 perspective? Okay, so if it were visible from certain places, with or without Mansards or whatever all these other things are, do you think that would be a compatible perspective with what surrounds it in Sparta?
Well, I look at, what am I looking at? If I look down towards the cemetery, I see the whole Stop and Shop and the strip center, all the utilities on their roof.
I'm not necessarily talking about the, yeah.
Where you can float a balloon up 46 feet and take a look.
Yeah, I actually suggested that early on in this process, but it never got
I don't
any
remember
traction.
that.
Let me see, about 2 or 3 more, if you don't mind. So just to reiterate, apparently 46 feet, whatever it is, we're setting a precedent whereby one or more lots around this building could also have structures that are 46 feet high. Maybe that's not a question for you, but is that true?
Well, it conforms to the zone. The zone permits 4611.
Is this zone very localized or is it a broader area? Was the zone been this way for a long time?
I don't know. I don't know the history of the zoning.
Anybody know? I don't remember
Tom,
it
when you
being
look- when
this.
we look at the 46 feet, I think that's restricted to certain apartments, not every building. So I think that's, most
I don't
buildings.
know,
I believe are 2.5
the
stories,
proposed
35.
height is conforming, Mr. Devine, and it is allowed in the TCC zone and some other zones when you're doing an affordable housing inclusionary development. They're actually much less than the allowed height. But yes, other properties in the TCC zone, which generally speaking runs from it runs from 517 all the way up to and including the Lake Mohawk Clubhouse and I believe up to the edge of Round Top beyond the bowling alley.
Is the height of a structure within a zone related to visibility, compatibility or or the
No,
ability for a fire truck to get to the top of it?
no, none of those. It is by zoning, and this proposal is conforming and less than the height, and it's less than the height of the previously approved apartment building. I don't have the height in front of me, but it was quite a bit higher for the Captiva apartment complex that was approved.
Are there variances as part of this approval process? Or is that to be determined? Are you looking for variances?
We're looking, go ahead, Brian.
Well, I'll take the mic. The application requires a variance for one loading space, which was previously approved by this board in the previous application. And there is a variance or a waiver with respect to the location of a sidewalk in the parking area that was designed to provide for greater landscaping.
So it sounds like the max variances will be maybe 2 or 3 based on what you just said. You don't foresee any more of that than that?
According to the application and the drawings on file, there are those 2 variances identified, and they were testified to. I don't know if you were at the last meeting where Mr. Burton reviewed the variances during his direct testimony.
Yeah.
believe there might also be a waiver for some parking space sizes.
I believe we're conforming with RSIS, but not the ordinance. So we're 9 by 18 in certain of the spaces, which, and I stand corrected because that was a change to increase the landscaping also. So our position is we comply with RSIS would govern. But to the extent the waiver is required, we'll request it.
My last question, it goes back quite a bit when I was actually on the planning board. We approved things based on the kind of presentation you're making. And I'm not degrading your presentation, but when the thing was actually built, a lot of people were surprised because we never actually saw a colored rendering of what it actually going to look like. So buildings have snuck through. On paper, they've met all the requirements, but we end up with a building that's not compatible with, at least in my judgment, a lot of the other architecture in the town. My hope is that we're not going down that path again. So thanks for your answer.
You're welcome, and I hope you have complete confidence that we'll do the right thing.
Okay.
Kathy Ebbinghausen, Scotter's Road.
Kathy, you were previously sworn, so
Sworn.
you're still under oath, and you may ask questions or testify, or both.
Thank you. What materials are being used on the ground and what percentage of impervious coverage do we have for this application?
Engineering question.
Okay. Previously, we talked about the perimeter, or someone else has brought up the perimeter of the building. What is the spacing available on the perimeter of the building? Is there enough for a car to get in there? Is it walkway? What is the proposal around the general perimeter of the building?
I understand the question.
Again, that would be an engineering question.
Well, Mr. McNerney, it seems like something you can answer based on the plans.
Yes, I
So
can.
I think it's faster to just answer it if you can.
No, I'd like you to speak to it because I don't know how to read this.
I'd like to show you.
Okay.
So here's the perimeter of the building.
Mm-hmm.
14 and a half feet rear yard to the building. Side yard here is
I propose grass, I assume.
it's
Is that
all
right?
wooded.
Wooded, so trees.
And then for here, we have a side yard of,
And the ground is also wooded?
come up to the
Okay, so no car is expected to go
No.
around the perimeter. It would just be humans or animals, correct?
Or humans and animals.
Great, thank you. I heard the term mansard roof used today, and I don't know that I quite understand that. Can someone explain what that is? I was trying to Google it a bit, and there's a reason I'm asking about it. In relation to previous testimony, we saw air conditioning units on the roof, and based on what I think I understand about a mansard roof is there's pitch on all sides. Does that mean the air conditioning units are still on the roof behind the pitch?
Recess, yes.
They are still there. They're just not visible now at all.
In the center of the roof, yes.
Got it. Okay. Was there a colorized rendering I heard discussed? Because I'm not seeing it. This is still the black and white.
We have colorized renderings, but that would be the old design. Would you like to see that?
I believe I heard the board talking about wanting to see it, and I think it would be great for the public based on the questions I've heard today and the concerns around previous buildings that were built in town that were not provided.
Well, we don't know what the color is as of tonight.
Right.
Colorized version.
Okay.
What is the exhibit number, Mr. McNeary?
A2.
A2.
And thank you, because that's a more clear picture. The drawing on the easel seems to be, I don't know if it's just me, a little more grainy.
The drawing on the easel was done in a rapid pace.
Gotcha. Okay. To that point, previous exhibits kind of showed balconies and we talked about fences. In a previous rendering, it seemed that there was maybe a 6-inch kind of fencing between the balconies where it looked like there could be a walkway, and I'm not sure if I just couldn't see it properly previously. Yeah, this right here.
That's the first floor. First floor will be patios. And then the upper 3 floors will be balconies.
That's new information. Can you talk more about that? Because I was looking at this drawing, and the fencing there seemed to give me the impression that people could be walking there. Is that correct?
The fencing you're referring to is the railings for the patio.
No, I'm talking about the fencing here. In between, where the trees are covering, there appears to be fencing in between the balconies. Can you talk more about that?
No, that depicts the railings. That's not fencing.
Okay, railings or fencing, I'm sure, I don't know the difference technically, but can you talk about the railings or fencing, whatever you consider this in between the balcony, please? You said patio. Can you talk more about that?
First floor, you'll be exiting out onto grade level. So that will be a patio.
But that's here, not up here on the,
Second through fourth floor will be a balcony, a covered balcony.
I'm sorry, I'm missing it, and forgive me. This is the second floor, correct?
Yes, it is.
What is this that is depicted here, that is in between each of the balconies?
That's just trim work.
That's, okay,
Decorative.
so that's decorative, okay, that's what I was trying to understand. Is there a walkway there in between the balconies? No. Okay. So there's no longer a parapet because of the update to the roof, is that right?
The mansard acts as a parapet.
Got it. My next question is to the board. I heard one of our professionals ask about the number of windows. Is there a minimum number of windows per apartments, per code expected? Maybe Catherine, that's something I can ask you.
I don't think per the ordinance, and I'm not sure by building code requirements, but I don't think so.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is this expected to be the highest elevation of all the surrounding lots, this building? Will it stand out as the highest? Are you expecting it to stand out as the highest around the surrounding lots?
No, the highest is the Mohawk House.
Okay. It wasn't in my mind as being in the general vicinity, but I understand what you're saying. Higher, okay. I think that's all of my questions. Thank you.
Do you have any testimony? This is the time for testimony.
I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other members of the public?
Mark Scott, 9 Pueblo Parkway.
Mark, you were previously sworn, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
It seems like nobody knows the history of this lot and how this approval came to be. Essentially, a kind of spot zoning type of lot. And I think it should just be told, that Mr. Close, our previous town manager, came to the previous board and asked or pushed or did whatever he did and got an approval for the town center commercial to allow for these 4-story buildings to be built. And this zone goes all the way down to West Shore Trail. Let's just imagine that for a moment, okay? One day the Dairy Queen's gone and it could be a 4-story tower. One day the Burger King's gone and it could be a 4-story tower. One day the Mohawk Avenue School is gone and it could be 3 or 4 4-story towers. One day the Optimum building and the building right across from Lake Mohawk are gone, and they could be 4-story towers. So this is just kind of what could be the beginning. Also, regarding you said that there are no dormers in the back. Well, if that lot ever gets developed, which was to be the convenience store, you would be able to see that from the Mohawk House or the bypass. And doesn't the ordinance, I think Mr. Collins said it just a few moments ago, as did Catherine, doesn't the ordinance say that it has to resemble and these dormers have to be on the building? So why wouldn't that apply to all 4 sides of the building? We had this discussion at the last meeting, and the council said, we want the site, the building to resemble the front on all 4 sides.
Well, first, there's a wooded area. There's a grade and there's a wooded area.
Today.
Today. And if an application came in on that property to develop, I'd be standing where you are, offering my testimony and saying how you need a buffer between the 2 properties.
So back to the ordinance. The ordinance says that the building should resemble the architecture in Sparta. And I think that applies to all 4 sides of the building. Catherine, is that correct? Or does it just say only a couple sides or 2 sides or 3 sides? Or does it say 1 side?
I want to double check that I'm answering correctly, so I'm just looking through my memo real quick.
Should I wait?
You can wait a sec.
Okay.
I don't see that specific requirement under the architectural design standards for the TCC, for the town center design standards, but it is something I added into the memo that I thought was important, specifically relating to the original design, which was definitely not.
The jailhouse design, right? The top one.
I'm not going to agree with that because that's your opinion. But the original design standards was I had significant comments on, the overall design has been changed significantly from what it was. And even the second iteration, which preserved that on other sides of the building, the north south and western facades, I had a problem with that as well. So this is a significant improvement. As far as the dormers being on the backside of the building, I wonder if the applicant would agree to put in, a handful of dormers, even if they're just fake, they're false dormers, so they're not, providing
How
anything.
many would you like, Catherine?
I mean, just symmetrically along the backside of the
would you want?
building.
Want to draw them on here?
I'm not going to draw them, but maybe.
I'll draw 'em.
Maybe symmetrically disperse them along the backside of the building. So we can,
4?
4 is probably,
Okay.
just so symmetrically,
Collins,
disperse.
can I write on this?
Yes.
Would that be acceptable?
Yes. Just maybe explain in words what you're doing.
I am plotting in 4 dormers on the back side of the building, similar to the ones on the side of the building. They're not exactly spaced apart, but you'll get the gist.
Well, you're going to have them evenly spaced, Bob, right?
We can put them in as conditions for resolution compliance, so that they're spaced evenly when redesigned on the
I
plan.
didn't say it was okay. I see that you drew them, yes.
Board.
The parking spaces, you said they're RSIS compliant at 9 by 18. Is Sparta's regulation 9 by 20?
The ordinance is at 9 by 20, but they could request a waiver for 9 by
Well,
18.
But do you know
No,
something?
No, sir, wait. The applicant answered, and the answer was correct, that in the entirety of the state of New Jersey, for residential development, the residential site improvement standards preempt, control, override, and the RSIS standard applies to this because it is a residential development. But that being said, the applicant has explained why they are asking for 9 by 18, and that explanation involves places where the car goes over the curb and still has 20 feet if you count the 2 feet over the curb and the landscape area. So it's a very common thing to have 9 by 18.
Then how do people walk on the sidewalk if the
That's
car is
separated,
overhanging?
that they widen the sidewalk or separate the sidewalk, and that's what they've done.
Sparta's requirement is 9 by 20.
Sparta's requirement is 9 by 18 if that's what RSIS says, because that preempts the local, it not only preempts Sparta's ordinance, it preempts every ordinance in the 564 municipalities in New Jersey.
Once again, this is our town, and in my 60 years of living, I've noticed that the cars just seem to get bigger. And now we have these things called SUVs. So to make our spaces smaller, it just doesn't seem right. Okay, so, thank you.
you.
Remember that we could have towers all the way down to West Shore Trail. First one.
Okay, any other members from the public?
Mr. Merriman, you were previously sworn in this case. Please go ahead.
I have 2 areas for 1 or 2 questions. One of them is the.
Mr. Mayor, could you talk into the microphone? Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
One of them is the walkway from the street level up to the apartment building, which in a previous plan was a 4-foot wide concrete walkway. I mentioned, or I asked before, if there were any plans to widen that walkway to the 6 feet or 7 feet that is used otherwise in Sparta's town center. And so I would like to ask again if that walkway has been planned to be wider than the current 4 feet from the plans.
The plan indicates 4 feet, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Burton can answer the question.
Right. That's what we proposed. And in an area such as you suggest, would be where cars are parked perpendicular to the sidewalk, and therefore the bumper might overhang into the sidewalk. That would be a wider sidewalk. But this is a very limited pedestrian area for a limited number of people. It's not a downtown. So we propose a 4-foot sidewalk, which is a standard sidewalk.
Okay. I'm not sure you understood which walkway I was talking about.
So you're talking about the walkway down to this.
Yeah, the one that runs
Yes,
along that
that's exactly the
retaining
one I'm
wall.
talking about. It's 4 feet, it's a standard sidewalk, and that is sufficient. If we make the sidewalk wider, then we need more retaining walls, more excavation into the hillside.
Sure.
We designed it this way, and it's very little traffic, so I think 4 feet is sufficient.
Okay, the reason I asked about it before, and the reason I mention it now, is that this building has a high density of occupants. It's several dozen apartments, and there's going to be including younger users, children maybe walking to the school bus, and that a certain quality of life should be associated with a building such as this. And a 4-foot walkway may be legally passable, but to say that the one road that leads up to that building that's going to be used by cars at the same time that, say, people do go to the school bus or walk up and down for leisure, that a narrow concrete strip is not the allure that we want for our town. The reason not to widen it, because you have to cut some more into the hill, that is purely an engineering question. You cut this much or you cut that much, and you get your extra 3 feet. And you get a building, 25, 50 years, that has a sufficient approach to the people who plan to live there. And just a narrow concrete strip, it has no visual allure. And I would say more than 3 people, a parent with 2 children, are going to be really squeezed into that 4 feet. 4 feet is this wide. This is 4 feet. How are you going to put 3 people next to each other to go to a social event or a school event? So I would like to suggest to the board that there is a memo attached to the application that the pedestrian aspect of the approach to the building be respected as much as the car access to the building. So that is my request of the board, and I hope that it can be taken up as part of the approval process. This is for the benefit of the residents in the town. Second area I would like to mention is the electrical supply to the building. I asked about this before, but what I had to say about it then came too close to testimony and I had to cut it short. I would like to make sure that the developer has contacted the electrical company in that part of town. We've all lived in Sparta for a long time, and we know that on average we have about 10 power outages a year. They can range from a few hours to a few days. My longest personal power outage where I live was 2 weeks, where there was just no electricity because the infrastructure was not sufficient. I would like to make sure that the power lines on that stretch of Sparta Avenue are sufficient to carry the extra load for this building, which comes straight out of that one power line that runs along Sparta Avenue, or that a upgraded power line be buried underground. It's for the allure of the town. If we're going to build apartment buildings, maybe one, maybe several, it should be of a quality that befits Sparta. So that is the end of my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Derrick, step into Sparta.
And you're still under oath, you understand that?
Yes, thank you. I came in at the end of the discussion about the appropriateness of Corporal Morris's testimony about bus stops. I too spoke directly with the district, with the Board of Ed. I spoke with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent about buses. The way bus stops work is they do attach an address to it, such as 55 Sparta Avenue, just like they would say 19 West Shore Trail or any other address, but that doesn't mean the bus pulls into the parking lot or into the driveway. It means the bus stops at that address. The concern is that there are,
Chairman, I think I have to object. We have hearsay testimony from what was told to this person.
I also have children that go to the school, that went to the schools and experienced it.
I think we have to deal with the objection.
Hearsay is admissible in a planning board. It's absolutely admissible.
Sir, you're out of order. You are out of order, Manon. So.
Is there a way you would like me to rephrase that statement, or does
No.
it stand for itself?
It stands for itself. Just
Is it a
Thank you.
verbal conversation, or do you have an email that you can provide?
I do have an email. I would have to dig it up. I also spoke with him off the cuff at a Board of Ed meeting, as well as the assistant superintendent, to discuss the photos that were presented as evidence as well. Additionally, just so the board is familiar, because I don't know of your situation, but we now have children 3 years old through 18 years old getting on the buses. We offer preschool, and so there are 3-year-olds that are unlikely to walk down in the winter with their moms or walk back or be unaccompanied, just so that it can paint a picture for what we're looking at here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Anand Dash. 17, I can test.
Do you want to testify?
Just testify, no questions.
Okay. Do you want to speak as an attorney, though, and just okay, so you want to speak as a witness?
Sure, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, yes.
And please restate your name and address and spell
Yes,
your last name.
Anand Dash, Sparta, 17 Ponderosa Trail.
Thank you. Anand.
Thank you. So first of all, the rules of evidence do not strictly apply to land use hearings. Hearsay is admissible. Council knows that. Second of all, the most important duty of this board, respectfully, is the health and safety of its residents. With all due respect to the pitch of the roof, the number of windows, whether the window looks into the forest or looks into the street, whether respectfully the building can be seen from 517, whether it can't, whether it's teal or green, is fine for discussion, respectfully. But the municipal land use law charges volunteers such as you with a grave duty as laypersons. And that is with the advice of your counsel, an engineer and planner. And most importantly, the most knowledgeable expert in our town when it comes to traffic safety, our own Corporal Morris. Corporal Morris has been a resident and officer in this town in charge of the traffic department of Sparta for decades. His opinion is worth its weight in gold. Members of the board, you will never hear, and I haven't had a chance to cross-examine the applicant's witnesses, but I don't need to, because you will never hear an applicant's witness tell you when they've come this far that their application presents an unsafe condition. You will never have a traffic engineer tell you on behalf of an applicant that in their opinion, the ingress and egress is unsafe. That point cannot be overstated. So what we're doing here is we're balancing the testimony written, submitted by Corporal Morris, who has expressed an unbiased, right? An unbiased, impartial. He's charged with such a great duty to ensure the safety of the residents of the town. And he has opined that the ingress and the egress, both pedestrian and vehicular, presents an unsafe condition.
Chairman,
Excuse me, let me finish.
Excuse me,
And-
I have
No, I'm finishing, and then you can speak.
excuse me.
No, you excuse
I'm
me.
going
I think
to-
he's out of order. I'm making my comments here. He can speak after he's done.
Objection?
There's no objection. I'm speaking. You can wait, and after I'm done, you'll finish.
I'm making an objection to
This
what
isn't-
you're saying.
there is no-
because
Dash,
it's
Mr. Dash,
not in the record.
Mr. Dash, he does have the right to make an objection. So let him make it and then continue with your
Refer to
testimony.
Where Corporal Morris said that this ingress and egress was unsafe, please point to something, because that's not what he
Okay.
said.
I just ask respectfully that you reserve your comments until I'm finished.
Respectfully, I want you to stay with the facts. You show up at every other meeting, you don't hear all the testimony, so please stay with the facts. If you're not aware of the facts, then don't make them up.
You're making facts that aren't adding up either, frankly, okay? So let me finish. Ultimately, the municipal land use law allows this board to rely upon Corporal Morris, okay? And the distinction is a fine one, but an important one. We're not arguing that this project is going to generate traffic congestion, because admittedly, and in fairness to the applicant, that would not be a valid basis to deny the application, in fairness. Every application is going to generate some level of traffic. So what our courts have said again and again is that members of the public cannot just stand up and say, planning board members, this project is going to generate traffic, it's going to make our town more congested, and therefore you should deny it. That is not the basis. The basis to deny, respectfully, is the safety of the ingress and egress. And our courts have said that again and again, right? That where the vehicular and pedestrian traffic safety is in question and is substantiated by expert testimony, in this case, Corporal Morris, through his letters, the safety of the school children at the bus stop and the safety of the vehicular traffic, that is not only a legitimate basis, but it is the impetus, it is the requirement to deny this application. Again, we can't take at face value the applicant's testimony. Of course, they're going to tell us it's unsafe. It's safe. Now, I'll also add, I don't profess to be a traffic engineer, but I have lived in this town for 44 years. And the reason that's important, right, not just by virtue of the fact that I've lived in town for 44 years, but for at least 15 of those years, I have used that route, 517 Main Street, Sparta Avenue, as my running route. And why that's important, right? Because for 15 years, on a daily basis, I have observed, more so than the engineers for the applicant, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, half a dozen times, 15 years, over the course of 15 years, every single day, I have observed that intersection, and I'm embarrassed to say, frequented the Burger King with my children too often when we were younger, okay? And I have come close to be hit by a car pulling out of that intersection years ago on numerous occasions because of the lack of the driver being able to gauge that intersection when you're merging out of the Burger King and you have the other driveway that's adjacent to the Augies. Now, the relevance of that is that now we're adding 40 apartments to this. This is an inherently unsafe intersection that cannot be ameliorated by any testimony offered by the applicant because of the site suitability. Okay, so that's fine. We can spar, and applicant's attorney can get upset. They've been upset from day one, and I can come here when I need to respectfully. Okay, but that's beside the point. Let's set aside the emotion. Okay, this board is charged respectfully for the safety of its residents. both in my observed experiences and Corporal Morris, this is an unsafe ingress and egress, and our municipal land use law allows this board to deny the site plan if the proposed means of ingress and egress would create vehicular traffic problems on the site. And that case is Lionel's Appliance Center, Inc. versus CETA, 156 New Jersey Super, 257 Law Division, 1978. Planning board may deny a site plan application if the ingress and egress proposed by the plan creates an unsafe and inefficient vehicular circulation. I rest my comments on the safety of our children, the safety of our residents, and the law which allows this board to deny based on Corporal Morris's opinion. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Okay. All right, so with that, I guess we're at a point where we want to make a motion? Is there any
Mr.
other
Chairman,
testimony to be
perhaps
given?
if I could address a couple matters.
Okay.
If I may. I didn't want to speak extensively, but there are a few matters here. As indicated, this is a 40-unit development, 6 of which are affordable housing. So one of the things the board has to be cognizant of is that the affordable housing was a primary concern. 50% of my life is spent representing government entities and unfortunately affordable housing. There are significant obligations on a municipality, and it's a constitutional obligation. This development provides those 6 units. Let's look at the application itself. The application itself conforms with the zoning ordinance. We may not like the ordinance, we may not like how it came about, but the ordinance exists. The height of the building, the density, the impervious coverage, the bulk standards, the design complies with those standards. We're asking for 2 variances. One was for the loading space, which you heard testimony from. This board granted in 2020 an application for 70 units on that site with 1 loading space. In addition, the other variance we were speaking about was a sidewalk that was by the building with the separation. Mr. Burton testified to that, safety, efficiency, and to provide greater landscaping. Now, we've focused, I believe, a little too much on what I will call the traffic issue. I'm avoiding the word safety for a moment. The traffic issue, Mr. Burton testified, Mr. Simmons reviewed. There is nothing, and in addition, in Corporal Morris's memo, nothing in that memo that indicates anything on safe regarding circulation or ingress or egress. My objection to Corporal Morris's memo has nothing to do with the traffic safety. Corporal Morris was concerned about those easements that exist as you get closer to the roadway for the adjoining properties. What did Mr. Burton testify to? Corporal Morris suggested that it be appropriate signed, no through traffic, etc. That was agreed to. The problem that I had with the report was with respect to the opinion regarding the number of school children. So I used the word competency. That is not a derogatory term. It's the ability to render that opinion. I think what we've just heard is putting everything out of context. I was told, this is what I see, this is what I'm saying. Corporal Morris did not testify here. He provided a report. That report is contradicted by other documentation that has been submitted to the board. But with respect to Corporal Morris's recommendations for the safety of the cross easements that are there, we agree entirely. I think you have to look at this as that we've heard about the duty of the board. Unfortunately, I've been doing this for over 40 years, and site suitability has nothing to do with the consideration here. Site suitability was determined by the governing body when they zoned for the site. Something else, we can pick and choose cases all over the place. In terms of site suitability also, the governing body, when it zoned for this use, that's why we're here, it's permitted use, took into consideration those traffic concerns. Off-site traffic is not a concern for the board in consideration of the application. What is, and I agree with one statement that was made, that appropriate ingress, egress, circulation. Again, no testimony from any of the professionals, either on the applicant side or the board side, would indicate that there was any unsafe means of ingress, egress, etc. A lot of issues that have come up are construction issues. We have to comply with the multi-housing code that's enforced by the DCA and also the local building codes in order to develop this site. So when we look at it, you know, we're here for preliminary and final site plan approval. The question to ask is, does it comply with the ordinance? Substantially, yes. We could also look to the prior action of the board in order to make the determination as to the adequacy of the loading space and also Mr. McNerney's testimony. As a matter of fact, I believe Mr. McNerney testified, usually don't have a loading space with the multifamily. Move-ins, moves-out scheduled. It's certainly dealt with that way. I think you have to look at the great lengths we went for the design of the building. As we've indicated throughout, I guess this is our 5th hearing, all the conditions that we discussed, the Title 39, working with the Board of Ed. You know, it's sort of like the red herring issue here, the Board of Ed. We're going to work with the Board of Ed. They want to send the bus up, they'll send the bus up. They want to designate where the school bus stop is. It's really their prerogative. But until this is built and there's an identity of the number of children, what that census would be, that's when that determination will be done. So that's what you have to look at. We have a conforming application, and we've gone to great lengths to design the building in a manner that would be acceptable to Sparta. So that's where we're at. Appreciate if the board's consideration over these 5 hearings and request that the application be approved as presented. Thank you.
I have a question around variances. Early on, there was a mention of a variance for underground parking. Because I think was mentioned originally in one of the ordinances. Does that apply here or?
We're, if I may, Mr. Blumetti, we are not providing for underground parking. It is permitted in the zone, but not required.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Another question too, is there, regarding signage, is there a name for the building? I'm not sure if that was asked before.
Not yet. You have a recommendation?
I can come up with one, not tonight. Okay, in that case, would you be coming back to site plan waiver subcommittee for the name on the sign then, or design of the sign or not?
We haven't proposed signage, have we? I don't think we. Is there a sign? Back to the building department. Right, yeah, we identified the location, but we expect the sign to comply.
Okay, okay. Is that we usually like to look at least through the waiver subcommittee, the look and feel of the sign?
If that's a requirement, certainly we'll comply with the requirement.
Okay. And the fire department report, those are all things that are going to be complied with, right?
That was, I believe, the early May report. Mr. Burton testified on May 15th that those would all be complied with.
Okay. That's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, this question for you. I've been sitting up here for quite a while, listening to the conversations going back and forth. And I don't know if it's even appropriate or applicable or not, but the conversations surrounding Kurt Morris and I don't know what the protocol would be, but if the applicant's attorney would want to clarify or retract his incompetence statement, which has been argued on its content and its use tonight, which has caused a lot of strife in this room. I don't know if that's protocol that may choose to, but, I think I heard the public speak about Mr. Morris as well and his credentials and all that, and I took a little bit of offense to that as well.
Mr. Chukowski explained what he was saying in his closing just before, which is he's basically just saying that reports are not competent evidence. On the other hand,
That wasn't
he
the
isn't-
use.
No,
But
he
I
is
don't want to
not-
argue it.
I am trying to help.
Okay.
And both gentlemen, Mr. Dash and Mr. Chukowski, have their arguments. They're legal arguments. So don't worry about the characterization of a witness by the attorney. Worry about what the facts and evidence are in the record. And you heard testimony, including testimony by Mr. Simmons, which confirmed that the traffic report was competent by the applicant's engineer, who is a expert in traffic engineering, Mr. Callisto Burton, and Mr. Simmons is also an expert, that the proposed circulation and the proposed access, ingress, and egress are adequate and safe. Mr. Chukowski also pointed out that what Mr. Morris actually said was quite different than what Mr. Dash claimed. And what he wrote is quite different from what Mr. Dash argues. Now, Mr. Dash is arguing as a witness that he's concerned about that driveway. But he's not an expert. But you have Mr. Burton, who is an expert, Mr. Simmons, who is an expert, and even the report of Mr. Morris does not say that the driveway ingress and egress is unsafe. He does make a point about the bus stop or alleged bus stop at 55 Sparta Avenue. But that is a red herring, quite frankly, because there won't be a bus stopping there until a student lives in the building. And when that happens, whatever the laws are about bus stops will be determined and followed by the Board of Ed, not Sparta Township, not the planning board, not even the applicant, because the Board of Ed, if they're still providing busing at that time, which is always a potential that busing will be removed, but if they're still providing busing, it goes to every public school person. It even goes to every private school person if you're in Sparta. So the Board of Ed will decide that. And you've proposed, and the applicant has accepted, that they will request that the Board of Ed enter upon their property with a bus into their parking lot to provide busing directly from the building, which is feasible, but only approvable if the Board of Ed approves that. Moreover, the applicant has offered, and I would recommend it to you and the governing body, that Title 39 be applied by an ordinance of the council to the driveway and the parking lot so that traffic safety laws can be enforced. All traffic violation laws, all motor vehicle laws can be applied to the driveway and to the parking lot. This is commonly done for commercial properties and for apartment complexes and for townhouse developments when they have private roads. It will help ensure enforcement capability by the police department. I think those are the law and facts of this case, but you make those determinations. And I think it might help. Maybe one thing that I could use from you as a board is, I think you should pick the color. And I think you should pick the exact color from one of those 5. And my instincts are, based upon your history, is you might have very strong feelings about that. But it's your determination as a majority, and they're offering to let you do that. And they've been able to, previously they said, why don't we come back later and do it? But they're actually presenting to you the opportunity to decide that in your resolution. I think it's very useful to you if you're ready to talk about that.
Mr. Day, with your permission, Mr. Sylvester, my comments were not to besmirch the reputation of Corporal Morris.
Can you use the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. My comments were not to besmirch the reputation of Corporal Morris. So probably when I used the word competency, everybody's, was raised. As I indicated in my closing statement, we agree to try to make it safer, the second paragraph. The first paragraph, there was some conclusions reached, which whether he can render those opinions, I have no problem with that. He's the traffic officer and the like. They use the word engineer on the report. He's not an engineer. Certainly, he could come here and testify. We only have his written words, but based upon what we've seen, what was testified to. But at no point in time did I intend to besmirch his reputation by my statement. It was just the ability to render the opinion that was set forth.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
So if the board, one thing that would help is on the color, if you could dialogue about that,
We want.
we could put it in the resolution.
We make it conditional, correct? As part of your.
Oh, absolutely. They're offering it to let the board call the color. I mean, the trim will be white. What color is the main hardy plank going to be?
So, Woodstock
Is there any
brown,
issue of
Monterey
deciding the
taupe.
color of a building that has not been approved yet?
Oh, you'll be deciding it unless you approve it.
It's
Well,
going to
maybe we shouldn't have that discussion before.
Well, you should have it in the resolution, so,
We could add as a
yeah.
condition.
Your resolution will address it, and you'll either vote the resolution yes or no. No, not based on the color, based upon everything. Mark, please, out of order.
So folks, when I look at the ordinance, I believe what it says, and let me get it exactly, is you want to pick a color that's similar to the other buildings in the area. Let me find it real quick here. Shall be similar to types and textures of materials, and it covers colors as well, that are in the area, in the other areas of town centers. So when I look at some of the bigger buildings downtown, it's more of a neutral color. Anybody want to make a recommendation?
I think this side was partial to Monterey taupe, was it?
Which is that? Can you hold that up?
That was one of them.
What was it? Monterey taupe, right?
It was one
Yes.
of them.
This is the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that?
Anybody have any other thoughts, or is that going to be our selection?
Woodstock
Why,
brown.
why do we need, excuse me, I want to ask a question, and Tom, clarify it again. Why do we need to pick an exact color right now to,
You don't need to, but.
But we could just put it as a condition, as part of, if we, go to vote and we put a condition that, the color of the building would be, come back to the board for approval.
Because it's clearer if you do it in the resolution, okay? And they're offering to resolve it tonight.
I just think
Coming
this is-
back requires a new noticed hearing. It requires returning to the board. Only the board majority can determine this subject. So
So your recommendation is that?
my
we pick
recommendation is
color.
pick a color. You could pick two colors or two options. You could give them, you could say all 5 are
Selected
acceptable.
by one of the 5. I think, I've never seen this before, this.
I haven't either, but I'm
handled this
following the
way.
I
recommendation
disagree.
of our attorney.
You picked the color on, so you picked the color on Stop and Shop, you picked the color on
Right.
multiple buildings, as offered by the applicant when they appeared as similar to this.
Could you go over what the other conditions are?
So the basic motion is you're dealing with a motion, this will be a proposed motion, and you can add to it or subtract from it. It's a motion of the planning board to approve the preliminary and final site plan and related variances and site plan exceptions as presented in the hearings and throughout the hearings and in the revised plans and exhibits. And it'll be subject to the standard conditions. It'll be subject to a condition as offered, that they'll comply with the review report of Catherine and Dave Simmons, and the fire department. And the next condition is, as offered by the applicant will request and authorize the Board of Ed to have school buses come onto the apartment building property and into the parking lot to pick up and drop off school-age children. Next condition, as requested by the applicant, the applicant will request that the council approve an ordinance applying Title 39 motor vehicle laws to the property and the driveway so that they can be enforced by the police department. Number 3, they will comply with the revised architectural elevations and materials, including the Hardy Board presented at the 6/19/24 meeting. For now, I'll just say which shall be the main Hardy Board colors shall be the taupe. It was, did someone say the exact name of taupe? It was
Monterey.
Monterey taupe with white trim. They will comply with DCA requirements regarding the apartment building, including child safety screening. They will comply with the standard conditions. They will provide signage of no through traffic for the easements as recommended by Mr. Burton for the existing easements to the adjacent sites parking lots to and from. And they will comply with all ordinances, including the 6 units of affordable housing and 6 units of for sale condominium units.
If I may, Tom, one other, we testified will comply with the requirements of the Department of Utilities. That was their memo of May 8th.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I didn't have the mic, I apologize. Will comply with the requirements of the Department of Utilities, which was dated May 8th, 24. And the reference to the signage was based upon the portion of Corporal Morris's memo of May 3rd.
Okay,
And no PVC?
Did they mention
say it.
also adding the 4 dormers to the back?
We can make a specific condition that they'll be adding the 4 dormers,
Or more.
4 more
to you.
dormers to the rear of or side of the building facing 517. It's a side, actually. And in a way acceptable to the planning department. And I don't know, the majority can decide whether they want to add the, it's really hard to restrict what kind of materials people use on.
I know, but he said he would, so.
Oh, okay, well then,
Well, we would consider it.
It's not what he said.
That we haven't chosen the materials yet, and we said we would consider it, I think.
if that satisfies a board member too, that's just reasonable to just require it. That sounds like something Joan wants, so. Is there a second, is there a motion and a second with Joan's being the commentary?
There was also early on an agreement to plant extra evergreen trees I think it's on the plan now? Okay. And also extra planting of trees and shrubs within the parking area, that's on the plan now? Okay, thank you.
No, the case is over. That's, the attorney is doing a closing.
I'd like to say something, if I just might. And that is that, we've heard from the public regarding perhaps unsafe ingress or egress. And I would like clarification or a statement from Kurt Morris explaining his opinion if there is safe or unsafe ingress or egress, and make that possibly a condition.
The case is over tonight, and the applicant is not postponing. Mr. Morris is not here, so the board has to make a decision regardless.
Wasn't his only suggestion that you put the no through traffic signs?
That's,
It's the only thing in here, and they said they would do that.
Right. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, you could, Tom, there was some recommendations in the memo that Corporal Morris suggested, so at a minimum.
They said they would do the sign. We already put a condition specifically on that
Okay.
point, yeah. An explicit condition. No, there'll be signs saying no through traffic for those easements.
So with that, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the site plan as recommended by Tom? As put forth by Tom, I won't say recommended, but put forth with those conditions?
And that's with the taupe color and with the no PVC railings.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Go ahead, Ernie.
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Fox, roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Jeanette Burke,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
Abstain.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright.
Yes.
Joan Furman,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day.
Yes.
Motion carries. There'll be a memorializing resolution.
thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody for bearing with us. It was a long hearing and a couple nights, and we appreciate everybody's input.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good luck.
Can we take a 5-minute one or so?
And a 5-minute break.
Daniel Bankendorf from the law firm of Baskin Hooker, representing JVP Ventures LLC. Prior to this meeting, there was the executive session, and Mr. Collins had mentioned that you might be having a special session next week. Would it be possible that we carry our application this evening to that special session next week? Only because I anticipate that we're not going to get to us tonight, and
I agree. I just, I think we've got others there. We could put this on as well. Well, what do we have for the special meeting right now, Dory?
Right now, we have the Behringer application.
Okay,
We have the Lakeland Bank.
yeah,
And then, of course, it depends on what happens with Chase Bank and Thor Lab.
okay.
What about the special meeting in July?
I haven't got that far yet.
We keep those.
Yeah, we're keeping them.
I'll-
Yeah, there are A9.
Okay. So it sounds like we've got room on the 26th to add this one.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll add this one.
So we'll just confirm on the record that the application of JVP Ventures, Pinecone Plaza, 172 Woodport Road, will be carried without additional notices to the special meeting of the board on June 26, 2024, at 7 PM. Thank you, Mr.
thank you very much,
Bankendorf.
Chairman and members of the board. I appreciate that. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Motion to take a
Okay,
5-minute
People are already
recess.
moving.
5-minute break, and let's get back to you sharply a quarter after, so we've got 2 more we'd like to try to get through
I
tonight.
need like a booster seat.
I want to welcome the folks from JP Morgan Chase Bank on Planning Board Application 711, 27 Sparta Avenue, Block 5019, Lot 17, in the TCC zone. And this is this is being carried from the 515 agenda for a car solar port. So welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Erica Antonia Parlavecchio of Chiesa, Shahinian, and John Tomasi, appearing on behalf of the owner and applicant, JP Morgan Chase Bank, NA. And as the chairman noted, with respect to their proposed development on the property located at 27 Sparta Avenue and designated as Block 5019, Lot 17. This evening, we're seeking amended preliminary and final major site plan approval to install a solar carport over the existing surface parking area of the existing commercial bank. We're not proposing any changes to the existing bank building. And as our engineer will go through, the carport is part of Chase's Green Initiative, in which they invest in renewable energy, including solar carports at various Chase-owned properties. Solar devices such as this carport are permitted accessory use in the TCC zone as are customary and incidental to the permitted use of the bank. We're not seeking any variances this evening. We do have a number of pre-existing nonconformities which we would seek to continue, which our engineer can discuss. My office submitted an affidavit of mailing and proof of publication in advance of this meeting. We've received a number of review letters, and we will address those comments through our testimony. I have this evening 2 witnesses for you, consisting of civil engineering and our professional planner. Unless the board has questions for me, I'd like to call my first witness.
Before we go any further, if we bank there, do I have to recuse myself?
Oh, if you're, yes, if you have a bank account with Chase or a loan, it would be best to recuse.
How do I do that? Just walk away?
Yeah, well, let's make sure we don't have a rule of necessity problem, but anyone else have a bank account or loan with Chase Bank?
No problem.
So we have 3. So let's have you 3 recuse. It's, Jeanette too? What's that? Credit card? Oh, no, not the Visa credit card, I don't think. But basically, if you use this branch, let's try to be sensitive to that. What that means is you could go in the audience or in the hallway, and we'll call you back for the next case. So, I think. So it's 4 members, 3 members, and we still have a quorum. We still have a quorum. So, and yes, we are here on this site plan application, and the board has jurisdiction to hear this site plan application. And please go ahead, Erica.
Sure. So my first witness this evening is Lindsay Rice, and I can give her the microphone.
Thank you. Lindsay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please state your name and address, at least a business address, and spell your last name.
Lindsay Rice, spelled Reist, with Stonefield Engineering at 92 Park Avenue, Rutherford, New Jersey.
Thank you, Lindsay. I don't believe Lindsay has testified here before the Sparta Planning Board, so some limited qualifications would be helpful.
Sure. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Bucknell University. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. That license is current and in good standing. I've prepared over 30 site plans of similar size and scope to the application before you this evening, many of which minor site improvements to existing commercial facilities, just like this one. I've presented over 20 projects in various formats. While this is my first opportunity to give direct testimony before a land use board in New Jersey, I have attended close to 40 hearings. I'm very familiar with the process. This project is well within my professional expertise.
Thank you. The board will recognize and accept Lindsay Rice's qualifications as a professional engineer. And please go ahead and just give your testimony.
Thank you. So Lindsay, I guess we could just start. Can you just indicate your familiarity with the site and the project?
Yeah, sure. So I reviewed the municipal ordinance with regard to this application. I assisted in the preparation of the plans, and I have reviewed the professionals' review letters, the most recent ones and the ones provided previously for this application.
So can you just walk the board through the plans that are before them this evening with respect to the project, the improvements, and the carport itself?
Sure. So I'd like to start with the existing conditions. So I have first exhibit to introduce, an aerial exhibit.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that'll be A1, aerial exhibit. And just maybe the first part, just describe what it is. If you want to pre-mark any more than one, you could just go in sequence A1, A2, A3. If they're part of your existing package, though, and they're not rendered or changed, you don't need to give them an exhibit number.
I believe this is a new.
Yeah, that seems like it, so,
Yeah, the rest of our exhibits are previously submitted.
You
okay.
can also indicate the date of this.
Yes, dated 5/15/24, prepared by Stonefield. So this is a high-resolution recent near map image of our site and the surrounding features. You can see we're at 27 Sparta Avenue. Our site is zone TCC, Town Center Commercial, and the surrounding properties are also zone TCC. So to the east, we have a small retail strip. To the north is the Sparta Cemetery, buffered from our site by about 50 feet of mature trees, you can see in the image. To the west is the Wagmore Pet Boutique, and then across Sparta Avenue, we have the Sparta Dairy. So on site, we have the existing Chase Bank branch. We have access provided via one ingress only and one egress only driveway. Circulation, you can see, is counterclockwise. It runs around the rear of the site, and there is a drive-up ATM and teller window. And then there are parking spaces in the rear of the building. There are 17 spaces in the existing condition. You can see in this image, there are 7 spaces that are kind of centrally located here. They're exposed to the sun currently, and they're not shaded by any existing trees. That'll be important later. So that's the existing condition. And then next, I'd like to introduce the overall site plan, which was submitted previously, prepared by Black and Veatch. And that will give us an idea of the proposed configuration and location of our carport. So when evaluating its existing branch locations, Chase first assesses the potential for rooftop solar, as that's the most cost-effective. It's preferred when possible. Unfortunately, for this application in particular, the roof was deemed not suitable for rooftop solar. It just wasn't designed to withstand the additional stresses of the panels themselves and also the activity to install the panels. Those additional loads, the wind loads, things like that weren't taken into consideration with the initial design. So additionally, with the existing appurtenances on the roof, it's a flat roof, it has some equipment there. There's limited surface area available for rooftop solar. So it makes more sense in this case to pursue a carport instead. Unfortunately for us, our site is pretty suitable for a solar carport just like this over those spaces that I mentioned previously. So as Ms. Parlavecchio indicated, we are not seeking any variance relief with this application. Our proposed solar carport is a permitted accessory use. It complies with the minimum setback and height requirements. And while there are some existing nonconformities here today, we're not exacerbating them. The two existing nonconformities in question are impervious coverage, which 40% is allowed, and the existing condition has 53%, and the parking stall dimensions. It's permitted to have 9 by 20, or that's what's required, and we currently have 9 by 18.5 spaces. So just as I mentioned, we're not creating any new variances. Our proposed height of our carport is 13.5 feet, which complies with the accessory structure height requirement, has a clear height underneath of 9 feet as well. It's about a 20-foot wide by 50 foot, or 20 foot deep by 50 foot wide carport over these existing stalls in the rear, in the center of the parking lot there. And that accommodates 56 solar panels. So those panels provide approximately 80% of the bank's energy demand, or achieves that 80%, 78% of the bank's energy demand. So the carport is cantilevered, which means that in order to minimize disturbance to the parking stalls, we are proposing the 3 steel beam columns within the landscape area adjacent to the parking. So there will be the 3 steel beam columns with concrete piers, and then the carport extends over the spaces. So I have an image that I'll introduce shortly that will give you a better idea of what that looks like. The structure, as I mentioned, is fully compliant with accessory structure requirements. And we selected this location, as I mentioned previously, for the proposed carport as it provides shelter for, from the elements and also shade over these parking spaces where none exists today. It also provides, obviously, the added benefit of solar energy for the branch, and it has minimal to zero visual impact from the adjacent properties and from the right-of-way. To illustrate that last piece, we have our next exhibit, which is also previously submitted photorealistic rendering of the proposed carport, and it'll show it from various view sheds. So if there are no questions, I'll move on to that.
Do we hold off or ask questions?
You have much more testimony to go, or?
I'm about half through.
I'd like to let her, why don't we go,
Yeah, well, hold on.
get it done, and then we'll come back and ask questions.
So this is a previously submitted photo sim exhibit. I'm going to stand for a moment. This first sheet just will show the 4 view sheds that we're going to walk through. This is produced by Black and Veatch, prepared on May 2nd, 2024. So as requested, we were asked to provide a view shed showing what the carport is going to look like. So we have a few different views here. This first view shed is if you're standing near the corner of the building, looking in the direction of the parking stalls and where the carport will be proposed, so the rear corner of the building. So typically these carports are designed with a 5-degree tilt, which is the minimum to allow for them to be self-cleaning. Oh, we have packets if you don't have them already on you with these, so you can look at them.
You might as well pass them out. That's helpful. Thank you.
So they're typically designed with a little bit of a tilt, which allows them to be self-cleaning to prevent dust accumulation and debris buildup and things like that. Also, typical for these solar panel structures is for them to be designed with gaps in between the panels. So they're about 1/2 inch wide, and that allows for rainfall and snow melt to trickle between the panels, and rather than accumulating at the end of the roof structure and being concentrated there, it kind of trickles throughout and is then similar to as if it was just rain falling on the ground in the existing condition. So we did receive a comment from the board engineer regarding concerns about snow melt and ice. So we took that into consideration with our design. Previously, we had the low end of the roof over the parking stalls, so anything that did make its way to the end would fall on top of the pavement. We decided to reverse that. So now we're currently showing the tilt in the other direction, so anything that does make its way to the end will fall into the landscape area rather than onto the pavement. We're also proposing our inverter equipment on the column closest to the building. Here, you can't really see it in the image, it's pretty small. But again, we received a comment regarding utilities, screening them where possible. So taking that into consideration, we rotated the location of the inverter so it's facing away from the parking. So it's kind of more hidden from view. And then our planner is going to speak to the architectural standards of the TCC zone and more of the aesthetics. But just in general, I want to make a note that we're intending to paint this to align with the color scheme of the existing building, so kind of a warm off-white color. So this is our second view shed, which is as if you're standing in Sparta Avenue looking at the building and looking toward the parking lot near the ingress driveway. As you can see here, the building pretty much entirely blocks from view the parking and also our proposed carport. You can kind of see peeking out in the corner there, a little bit of the end of the carport, but it's virtually fully blocked from view. And then view 3 is very similar, but from the egress driveway instead. Once again, pretty much no visual impact from the right-of-way. Then finally, we have a fourth view shed, which just shows the rear of the building where our proposed building-mounted equipment will be. And you can see that it's located in the same general area as the existing utility meters and HVAC equipment. So that's what the rear of the building will look like. Okay, then I just want to touch on a few more things. Trying to keep it quick here. Lighting, there's existing poles on site. There are 4 poles. We're not touching them. There will be, so those existing poles provide illumination to the parking lot in the existing condition. Because of the proposed structure blocking some of that illumination over the existing stalls there, we're proposing 2 canopy fixtures underneath the canopy. They're just 6-foot LED strips, which will provide sufficient illumination underneath the canopy. The lighting schedule will be from dusk till dawn, which is the same as the building lighting. That was a comment we received.
Christopher, again, you mentioned, you're trying to be quick. Please take your time and, feel comfortable to, to say it at the pace that you're comfortable with. Don't feel rushed, please.
Sure, thank you. I am a little nervous. With regard to landscaping, the current site is very well landscaped in the front. It's got, as I mentioned, mature trees in the rear between our site and the cemetery, and then there's also mature plantings along either side of the property. So we're not proposing to add any landscaping with this application. We're also not removing any landscaping with the carports. Fortunately, for us, there's this open space in the center of the parking lot that currently has no trees, no shade. So we won't have to disturb any existing mature trees to propose this. And we get the added benefit of creating shade where there isn't any currently over these stalls. So we addressed most of the comments provided by the board professionals just in testimony here. Oh, yeah.
Lindsay, could you just, while we're on the topic of landscaping, can you just discuss the reason that we're not really proposing any additional plantings like in and around the area of the carports?
Sure. So if we were to propose a tree in the island where the carport is proposed, it would result in a reduction of energy output. One tree, for example, would reduce the energy that's generated by about 14.5%. So we're trying to maximize our energy generation.
And on the topic related to energy generation, can you just discuss kind of briefly what, the design of the carports and what they're intended to do for the bank in relation to the bank's energy as well as the grid itself?
So the utility requires that any energy that's generated beyond what is required of the bank would be sent back into the grid. But based on our current design, we're providing about 78% of what the bank would require. So we're constrained physically by the site itself, and then also constrained by various PSE&G requirements that we're, being held to.
And just for
Jersey Central Power and Light, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
And just so, can you just confirm though that this is designed to offset the bank's energy? It's not designed to send energy back into the grid itself?
Yes, that's correct. Oh, okay.
So it's basically a net zero proposal, even though it's less than.
Are you putting the 12% back into the grid?
No, we're 22% under what the bank needs. So we're under what the bank needs. So we're not generating an excess.
All right, so you're using it all?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So one other comment I just want to quickly touch on in the engineering letter was with regard to construction phasing. So this is a pretty minor work scope anticipated to take approximately 2 weeks. The immediate parking stalls in the vicinity of the carport may be out of commission temporarily, but in this age of online banking, we're not ever seeing this parking lot full, so we don't anticipate that that would be an issue. Also, circulation is not impacted by the proposed development. We still have access to the drive aisle that goes around the building to the ATM.
And I guess along similar lines to some comments we received in reports, have you reviewed all the reports? Yes. And do you take issue with any of the comments contained in the reports we received?
We'll agree to comply with everything in the reports. We don't take any issue with any of the comments.
Unless the board has questions, I have no further questions.
I do.
Okay, thank you. So with that, let's bring it to the dais and
So from aesthetically, the steel I-beams, you look at the drive-through with the posts, which I'm assuming are steel I-beams, they're capped with aluminum, correct? Yeah, I believe so.
I believe so.
So these steel I-beams, is there any way to cap them so you're not staring at steel I-beams? And then also the footings out of the ground, is there any way to make them look more aesthetically pleasing?
We are intending to paint them. We could potentially work out something. I would say our planner is going to speak a little bit more to the aesthetics and what's possible in that regard.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a question as well. So on the drawing here, I see that there's one section here where you're going to have the solar panels over these cars. Do you also intend to have it here, or it's just here?
It's just where shown in that image.
Okay, all right.
Those other cars they're shaded by existing mature trees, so
Gotcha.
it wouldn't be feasible.
Okay, that's it.
What is the Pascal rating on this?
I do not know the answer to that.
In other words, if you had a heavy snowfall, so maybe 3-4 feet, it'd probably be a 5,000 Pascal rating. Can you at least address a 3 or 4 foot snowfall and
Yeah,
how
these
strong this would be?
structures are designed with snow loads in mind in accordance with requirements set forth by the country, the federal requirements.
And what are they? How much snow can this particular unit hold?
I'm not a structural engineer, so I can't really speak to that. I could get that information.
Yeah, that'd be a concern.
We can provide it.
I guess, Lindsay, could you just maybe reiterate the design of these and how, precipitation is, comes off of them and the design of them and how that affects precipitation and snow?
Yeah, sure. So it is designed with snow loads in mind, but also between the panels, there are gaps to allow for snow melt to fall in between. So it is anticipated that while at times snow would accumulate on the roof, it would be able to filter its way in between the panels and either slide off or drip through
When it melts.
the gaps when it melts, yes.
Yeah, because we could get some significant snowfall and don't want to see a structure falling down.
Sure, of course.
So if you would get back to us on that.
I can do that.
You mentioned the lighting being on, the additional lighting being planned to be on from dusk to dawn. Can you explain the reasoning why dusk to dawn, and is there an opportunity to cut those back at a certain point?
They're designed to maintain the same schedule as the existing bank, and that's currently the lighting schedule that the bank is on. Is there a concern about?
Yeah,
them being
but just
on
when the
only?
bank's closed, extra light pollution. Is that, you're saying the parking lot lights are at dusk to dawn as well?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a drive-through there?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
That'll be for security, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is the number or the dimensions of those parking spaces changing at all with this?
No.
Okay. And thinking of the snow melt, stormwater management, is there what's the heat generated by the panels or by the infrastructure that could be added here? Is there any?
Well, they are covered in a no reflection paint. So as far as glare goes, that's not a concern.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know that I have an answer regarding the heat generated by them. I don't think that there really much is any.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thanks.
questions that I was going to ask have been asked and answered already, so. that's it.
Yeah, I just have quick, one or two of them. Just for clarification, is it your client's intention to own and operate, or are you out subletting this out to a third party?
No, I believe the intention is that they would own and operate the panels.
All right, and then from a maintenance perspective, as far as cleaning them, if in a case of snow load and all that, that would be the facilities management or property management responsibility. You're not outsourcing that to a third party, or?
It would
I know
be
there's
the bank's
services that do that,
responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
And are you looking to repave the entire parking lot as part of the project?
No.
Or are you just looking to set the system in place?
The scope of work is strictly for the carport and its associated utility trenching.
Okay. That's it for now. Thanks.
Christine?
I'm good, thank you.
Same here. Good.
Probably should have gone to professionals first. Let's do the, Catherine, why don't we start with you first, since Dave normally gets to start off?
So I believe most of the comments I had were addressed, largely in regards to the town center design standards section, which this property is subject to because of its zoning. And it was mentioned that the color, the painted color would try match the existing building, and that largely the structure would be screened behind the existing building as well and would not be visible. Some of my other questions were related to the stormwater, because the site already does exceed the impervious coverage. Now, that's not being changed by this because it's over an existing paved area, but still this plan is before the board. And so I think it's a valid question. And in addition to that, I would ask if the applicant is proposing to, restripe the parking lot or any of the directional markings on the pavement.
We are not.
Would the applicant be amenable to, on sheet 2 of it, you can see very clearly that the pavement markings, the directional markings are pretty worn. And so while, the site improvements are being undertaken, I don't think that that's necessarily a large ask. And, I think it would go a long way to improve the site as well.
We can agree to restripe, but we wouldn't mill and overlay. the
That's
site.
fine. That's fine. I just want to see,
Sure.
some improvements on the markings. And that's all additional questions I have.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Simmons?
I'm batting cleanup tonight. The applicant and all the board members addressed pretty much all the issues. There's just a couple things that we've done in other applications in other municipalities. If the board approves the application and it's installed, one of the things we recommend from a safety standpoint is if the applicant's willing to have their technicians and their maintenance staff give the fire department a tour of the facilities and guide them, God forbid, if there was an emergency, where they know where the cutoff switches are and what have you, just to take care of that properly and be safe doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The other thing I pointed out, just so the board knows, on their inverters, they did have some data on the noise level, and it was about 62 decibels, which was fine. That exceeds the nighttime decibels, but correct me if I'm wrong, nighttime, it's not working anyway because it's dark, so you're not going to have the noise.
And also that's in the location of the carport, not at the property line.
Yep. And we called for as-built plans, and again, there were several details on the inverters and the solar panels and the electronics itself, as well as the various warning signs for the facility. I deferred all that to the construction official when they apply for the permitting for the project, if the board approves it, just so he can go over all that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask another question there?
Please.
Are there any EV-ready spots or charging stations on this property today? And are there any planned with this?
There are not today, and with a redevelopment like this, we're not required to install them. If that's something that the board would like, we can consider it. Typically, in a development of this size, with this few parking spaces, it's not something that's required.
Okay.
If it's under 25 spaces.
Yeah, that's okay. No, it's not going to change any of the ADA parking, correct, right?
No.
No, okay. Nope, just curious. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, unless anyone else at the dais has questions, I'm going to open it up to the public. Members of the public?
Good evening, Kathy Ebbinghaus on Scudder's Road.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
What is the height in relation to the existing building? I wasn't able to see the perspective on that. I know you mentioned it was 13 and a half feet tall. how tall is the building itself, and is it taller than the building, the existing structure?
Let me double check. Our existing building is 23 feet in height, and our proposed height is 13 and a half.
That's no.
No.
It's not. Okay. It is not higher, is
No.
I guess the answer to my question. Okay, thank you. Second question, will this structure impede pedestrian traffic to the building in any way?
No, the proposed columns are within a landscape area currently, so.
Okay. Mr. Blumetti answered or asked my question about the ADA spaces. Are they actually located under the structure or are they to the side?
Yeah, the existing ADA space is underneath, it's the closest to the building under the proposed carport.
Okay. From the pictures I was able to kind of see from back there, the corner of the rear of this structure, the corner, seems to be close to where the existing circulation pattern is around. Is that the case?
The footprint of the carport does not extend beyond the curb line, no.
Okay. In terms of on the ground, with the structure above at the 13-foot mark, are we expecting that to impede fire trucks?
No.
Can you explain more about that? Like, do we know heights? And it just seems really small back there. And if a fire truck was needed to go back there, it doesn't appear that one could fit because of that extension of where that is.
I would say based on the size of a fire truck, it probably wouldn't be trying to squeeze into the parking stall area anyway. It would be in the drive aisle. So it wouldn't be impacted by the carport.
Okay, what is the mitigation plan if someone hits the structure? If a larger vehicle or a car or anything hits that structure, what is expected to happen?
It is designed with a 9-foot clearance, which is sufficient for most standard vehicles. If it were to be hit, then it would be the responsibility of the branch to repair it.
Okay. What type of lights are being installed? Or first, let me ask, are there lights being installed under the structure?
Yes.
Is that right?
There are 6-foot LED strips.
6-foot LED. Does the carport cover the drive-through portion or is it separated?
It's separate. It just covers those parking stalls.
Just the parking stalls?
Yes.
Okay. Can't read my writing. I think I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other members from the public wish to speak, ask questions? Okay.
That's all I have for Ms. Rice.
Okay. Any other testimony?
Yeah, we have one additional witness. It would be our professional planner. I'm not sure if you want us to start or.
How long do you think that will take approximately? Okay.
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 Okay, then I'd like to call my next witness, which would be Mr. TJ Ritchie, also from Stonefield.
Mr. Ritchie, please raise your right hand, speak into a mic. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name, and give us at least a business address.
Sure. TJ Ricci, last name is spelled R-I-C-C-I, business address 92 Park Ave, Rutherford, New Jersey.
Thank you. I guess you have never testified here before, so some quick qualifications would be in order.
Yeah, haven't testified here, but I have testified easily over 100 times in front of at least 75 boards throughout the state of New Jersey and New York. Licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, nationally certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners, bachelor's and master's degree in city and regional planning, both from Rutgers University. My licenses are active and in good standing.
The board will accept Mr. Ritchie's qualifications as a professional planner. And please go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. Ritchie, can you just give the board your testimony and your opinions with respect to the site and the proposed project?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Well aware of the hour, so I promise I'm going to keep this brief. Just going to give, just a quick introduction about the planning piece of this, and then kind of go through Catherine's letter, board planner, and just see if there's anything that needs tying up there with regards to the TCC zone. So just to reiterate, this is an accessory structure. It is permitted because it directly serves the bank building. With regards to the variances, we're not seeking any, because with accessory structures, they actually require that you use the principal structure requirements with regards to setbacks and height. We're well in compliance with the height, and we're within the building setback for the principal building. So no variances are needed for this. Now, in Catherine's letter, it was discussed how this aligns with the TCC zone requirements. Now, there's two, I guess we'll call them sets of requirements. One is called a site design spatial requirement. So that's really how sites are laid out, where buildings face, where you put accessory structures, what's the prevailing orientation of the building, so where the entrances are. Obviously, this is just a solar canopy application. This is not a new development, but I will say our bank is developed consistent with all the other lots around us. I would say the one goal that would be applicable in that section of TCC zone requirements was that you put parking in the back and accessory structures and uses towards the rear of the site, which we're good with. And then the second piece of that is the architectural requirements. As I mentioned, this is not a building. This is a solar carport. There's not a whole lot of architectural variety when it comes to the design of carports. Most of the requirements promote architectural requirements from an aesthetic standpoint, like decorative cornices and facade treatments and things of that nature. Obviously, those things wouldn't be applicable to a solar carport. But as Ms. Rice did testify to, what we plan to do is paint the primary supports to match the building, so it blends in. It works with the site, with the existing building. It's going to be a beige or it's going to be a beige or a gray, whatever's matching that mansard roof that's out on the building now. With regards to the solar panels themselves, we obviously can't change that color. So the secondary supports that are going to be supporting those panels are going to be a gray, so they blend in with those solar panels. Now, there's a bunch of trees that essentially wrap the back of the site. So actually that darker solar panel is kind of good because it kind of helps blend in with the backdrop of the trees back there. And you really only see the columns themselves, which will, as I mentioned, match the building. And this is consistent with what's in the area. I mean, most buildings in the area, they have a red brick exterior, and then most of the accent colors on these buildings kind of range from browns and tans and beiges, which is exactly what our building has here and what we're proposing to match with the solar canopy. So with regards to those standards, I think we're right in line, as in line as we can be for a solar canopy application. With regards to treatments on the H-beams or the I-beams, whatever they end up using themselves, I think the intention was not to do that just because there actually is electrical accessory equipment that's mounted to that beam. And I think that was the reason for that. I imagine we would be able to wrap it probably with some sort of faux brick material, but I'm not sure if that would impede the ability to mount this electrical equipment from a functionality standpoint, from a regulation standpoint. So I think that's usually the intention on keeping it the exposed H-beam and then just painting it to match the building. With regards to the concrete footings, there are 2-foot exposed concrete footings at the base. And I think as it's been talked about, that's in order to prevent, hopefully, if a car were ever to hit into the beam, it protects that structural integrity of the unit itself. So that's the reason for keeping them exposed rather than dropping them into the ground. That sums up everything from a planning standpoint.
TJ, if you could just briefly go through, I think one of the comment letters, there was a mention of a possible design waiver with respect to shade trees being in parking aisles and being provided in parking aisle plantings. Can you just briefly kind of touch on that and the justification if the board believes we needed a design waiver for that? Can you just go through that quickly?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the ordinance requires that shade trees are located in planted islands of parking lots. Obviously, there's no new parking lot design being proposed here. No trees currently exist within that planted island, but if you see in the renderings, this whole site is wrapped in trees. This is technically an existing non-conforming condition. If we were to try to squeeze trees in here, you would add a little bit more greenery to an already green site, and you probably take away the whole point of what the solar panel is trying to do, and that's capture the sunlight. So I mean, from a classic C2 benefits versus detriments test, I think if we needed to seek that waiver, I think it's a pretty reasonable request, given that this is a solar panel and you want to keep it clear of trees in that direct area. Yeah, I mean, really summing this up from planning standpoint, us as planners, we look to keep buildings that have been existing in downtowns for some time. Sometimes you have to make adjustments like this to help modernize this. I know the municipal land use law specifically promotes the use of renewable energy resources, so directly aligns with that goal of the MLUL. I think this is, as Ms. Rice mentioned, this is a perfect candidate for this because we have this existing parking lot. We're not creating any variances from it, and it's permitted accessory use. I think it's really a win-win. That sums up the planning testimony, but happy to answer any questions.
I have no further questions for Mr. Ritchie. If the board has questions, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them.
David, let me start with you. Any additional questions based on the testimony?
Not at this time, no, sir.
Catherine?
I'm satisfied with the planner's testimony. I think, one of the benefits to the application is
Catherine,
that-
can you use the mic, please?
So sorry. One of the benefits to the application is that I did raise that the town center design standards and the architectural standards that are required to be complied with, which also cross-reference the town center master plan design standards, which we talked about in the last application. And although this isn't for a primary building, I think some of those are still applicable. And what I was saying before about to the benefit of the applicant is that when this site was previously developed, it did follow those town center master plan guidelines very closely, meaning it pushed parking behind the building, which is why they're able to kind of obscure the proposed canopy. And I think they've made some changes in regards to Mr. Simmons' comments and some of my comments about the attenuation of that to avoid any kind of additional potential precipitation sliding off into the parking lot, so some safety concerns. I think they've really followed with some of Dave's comments. I think as far as a visual impact, they've kind of identified that it won't have a visual impact, which is one of my largest concerns, because I think those town center design standards are there for a reason, and something like this could easily get out of hand and be in violation of those. But I do think that it's hidden pretty distinctly behind the building, and it will add the benefit of renewable energy, which is without a visual impact, which I think will be is a good cause.
Thank you. Okay, bring it back to the dais. Ernie?
No, I have no questions, and the Environmental Commission did offer.
Christine, can you use your mic, please?
Did offer that with the solar installation, this location may be eligible for Sparta Township's Green Business Initiative. So I suppose the bank manager might be somebody to see about that. Have you dealt with this before with your projects?
I haven't spoken to them about it, but if, it's something they would consider, I don't have an answer for you on that question tonight, but we, are aware of that comment, and so is the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
No questions.
No questions here?
So you mentioned the lighting now, and also earlier heard about the lighting under the carport, the additional lighting being added. I understand you said that there are 6 feet long LED strips, I believe. Are there alternatives or other ideas around changing the lighting to perhaps make it less industrial feeling or less, I don't know, more in character with the town without decreasing safety and decreasing, are there any options for different lighting? It could be put underneath there.
Well, first of all, will they even be visible from the side?
No.
Because they're hidden by the solar panels themselves. They're recessed under the panels, so to speak.
That's correct.
So you're trying to shed light on the people getting in and out of cars under the panels.
That's correct. They shine down.
Okay, so they're probably invisible, but Dave would know best.
Yeah, I think the strip that they're talking about versus, sometimes we run into this with canopies, for example, at gas stations. When we've had them before, we always recommend that the lights be recessed up in. If they hang down, then you start to see the glow of the element of the light itself. And then what I'm hearing in this, with the structural members that are going to support the panels, it's going to be nestled up into them. And you'll basically just see the resultant light coming down.
Okay.
And we have a situation where it's not like you're driving up a driveway and you can look under those panels. It's a fairly flat parking area in the back. So I think it's going to help diffuse it pretty well.
Okay. Okay. No other questions? Thank you.
Just want to thank the board for their time and consideration. I don't, oh, sorry.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
So I think we still need to open up to the public before we place this to a vote. I know we've got a no testimony after 10 o'clock, so I think we could still have questions if everyone be amenable to that, just to try to get this one through tonight. So I'd like to open up to the public and ask that the public try to be concise with your questions for any questions that you have, because we still have some things to do after we finish this particular hearing. So with that, let me open up to the public for any questions, additional questions that you may have. Okay, seeing none?
Ron, why don't you open it for comments too, because it might be possible to be
Okay,
finished tonight.
thank you, Tom. Does the public have any comments?
Testimony?
Okay. All right, seeing none, Tom, can you help us with a motion?
May I just ask, Dave, are you satisfied then that it could handle 3 to 4 feet of snow?
I'm sorry?
Are you satisfied that it could handle 3 to 4 feet of snow?
You know, I'd have to check the codes to see what the estimated snow load would be for this area for this type of application. But based on what I've seen in other applications, they're going to have to satisfy the construction official that they're going to have to satisfy that particular snow load. And I think you have a situation here where, because there's no shade, because they're keeping the landscaping away from it, you're going to get that sunlight to help melt the snow anyway. So granted, you can get some prolonged freezing times and get some accumulation, but I think they'll take that into consideration when they do the structural analysis.
Okay, thank you.
And we would of course comply with all building code requirements with respect to the structure and, the snow.
Okay.
So if the board would entertain it, you could consider a motion to approve the amended preliminary and final site plan application and related site plan exceptions. Sorry. So if the board would consider it, it's a motion to approve the preliminary and final site plan and related site plan exceptions, subject to the conditions that were discussed this evening, subject to the standard conditions, subject to Dave Simmons and Catherine Surmad's review reports. They'll provide the snow loading compliance information to the planning department. The bank will own and, is another condition, the bank will own and maintain the carports and solar panels. They will, there's another condition, they will restripe the parking lot and directional pavement markings. They will, another condition is they'll give the fire department a tour, an explanation of the system and the cutoff mechanisms. Next condition is they'll design and build the carports as proposed with the revisions of the paint color similar to the beige of the building as shown in the exhibits. for the posts, and if possible, they'll add aluminum cladding if that, in a manner that would look like the posts of the carport, but that is dependent on the feasibility with the wiring and cabling. Is there such a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, so we have Joan as the first, and who is the second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right,
Deputy
Mr.
Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Jeanette Burke,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
Yes.
Joan Furman,
Yes.
Ernie Ragsdad,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day.
Yes. All right, motion approved. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you.
Okay,
Could you tell them to come back in?
Folks back in.
okay, so with that, we were hoping to get to Thor Labs tonight. We're not going to get there. So we're going to need to set another date for that, if that's acceptable.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my name is Peter Donald, I'm here on behalf of Thor Labs.
Can you use my, come forward? I'm sorry. Thank you.
My name is Peter Donnelly. I'm an attorney. I'm here on behalf of Thor Labs. I understand you don't take applications at this late hour, so we'll have to carry this unless the board wants to stay. We have about a 15-minute presentation. We think we can get through this in about half the time of the bank's presentation.
See, unfortunately, we've got some other business we have to take care of, mandatory
Okay.
business we have to do, so we're still going to be here for a while. So I'd like to set a new date if that's acceptable.
Yes, I've already spoken to the clerk. I know you have a meeting later this month, which is not going to match up with some of our schedules. So the July meeting, I guess, would be the next one that would be available for us.
So would you be agreeable to send it to the July 17th meeting?
Yes, July 17th is
Okay.
fine.
July 17th. So Peter, will you extend the time frame for action until July 18th?
Yes.
Thank you. And we'll just confirm for the record that the Thor Labs application is carried without additional notices to July 17th, 2024 at 7 PM at this meeting room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The other one's going to carry over anyway. We couldn't get them in on.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So that gets us to the other board business, other meeting. Does anybody, any member of the board have any other board business that you'd like to bring up? Okay, seeing none, that gets us to the updates. Deputy Mayor Blumetti, anything from the town council?
Yeah, I have a few things. I'm going to update you on, everyone on the last two meetings with the town council, May 28th and June 11th. First update is the council recognized, as we usually do, two recipients this year as the outstanding senior Spartans of the year. I'd like to congratulate, and I attended the dinner, which was very, very nice. The two recipients, the two winners were Marianne Francisco and Reverend David McDonald. Second item is the council CFO, town manager. We approved the consolidation of outstanding debt of about $9 million, which included a large portion of short-term notes, and it was created into a longer-term bond offering, which should help smooth out cash flow and save the township money in the long run. Third, and of particular interest to this group, is the parking design standards recommended ordinance from the planning board was introduced at the last meeting, and the hearing will be the next council meeting on June 25th. Fourth, the final municipal budget was adopted. And before I forget, also, the fifth item is that the council, as is typical during the summer months, has canceled one meeting in July and one meeting in August. So those canceled meetings are July 9th and August 13th. So we are keeping July 23rd and August 27th. And then finally, I just wanted to share an update that I had shared during the council meeting, specifically related to the planning board. And so I shared an analysis of some historical data and very recent reports that the township had received from rating agencies. about the state of Sparta, I'll call it, and in terms of how we are fostering and welcoming businesses and economic growth. And I did it to reassure the public because, there's, just to reassure the public that we are doing a good job. Economic growth is going really well. We're being rated highly, and we have a strong financial position, and we are remaining very attractive to businesses. The one report I referenced was from S&P, Standard & Poor's, and that was just dated June 5th of this year. It highlighted and reinforced our AA+ rating and reaffirmed it for the quality of our latest bond offering as well. They called out the township's very strong economy, praised our strong financial position with healthy reserves and low debt. They noted the local housing market remains very strong in Sparta, and they called out our very strong budgetary flexibility and liquidity positions. Separately, there was another rating agency presentation put together to accompany the recent bond offering, and that was May 29th, 2014. That report highlighted that the township maintains a sizable tax base with a very strong market value per capita, and noted that commercial properties have grown 14% since 2019. Also, property valuations, we looked at ratables for the past 8 years and property valuations for the past 8 years. And every single year over the last 8 years, the trend has continued upwards. So ratables, property valuations have continued to increase for the last 8 years every year. And if you look at the breakdown by residential, farmland, commercial, industrial, et cetera, the portion of the total that belongs to commercial and industrial uses has actually increased 12% in the last 8 years. And finally, and which was the initial focus that I had going into this, and I had lots of help from Dory, looked at the number of planning board applications. So major applications that came through the last number of years, just to do a historical analysis, and looked at 2018 to 2023, excluding the 2 pandemic years of 2020 and 2021. So when you look at 2018, 2019, 2022, 2023, the major site plan applications, in 2018, there were 7. 2019, there was 5. 2022, there were 6. In 2023, there was 9. So just wanted to tell the public and share with them that the applications are coming in strong. We all know. And kudos to Dory and the whole office and her staff for maintaining all this, keeping us afloat, and to all of you for all the hard work and all the preparation and all the diligence, spending your time as volunteers doing this. And I think it shows well in these numbers. So I was happy to share that with the public and with my fellow council people last meeting. That concludes my report.
Chairman Day, before we move forward, I'd like to backpedal just quickly to other board business. I'm not exactly sure it's appropriate for a lengthy conversation right now, but I'd like to get it out there for an agenda item for potentially, if not next meeting, which I unfortunately won't be at, but definitely the meeting after, is regarding the master plan and what the plan is for the master plan, given the budget constraints.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Christine, Environmental Commission?
Thank you, Chairman. We had our open space and recreation public hearing, our first one for the public, and that was held on June 13th. And I'm happy to say that it was well attended by Sparta officials. Thank you, staff and the public. And Barbara Davis of the Land Conservancy of New Jersey along with her staff, is writing the plan, which is being paid for by the New Jersey Highlands Council grant program. And the open space and recreation plans are suggested normally to be written every 5 years based on changes that often occur within a community. But ours is well over a decade old. I thought I heard her say maybe a couple of decades old. So we're kind of playing catch up on that. And it needs to be redone for a couple of reasons. And obviously the needs and composition of our community in Sparta has changed through time. And once completed, it can be adopted as a key element of our new master plan, which will open up potential financial support for acquiring desirable parcels for recreation and preservation. So we did kind of a fun exercise when, during the meeting, we did something called a word map picture. And we had our machines in our hands, and what we did was we we were asked a number of questions, and we put our word responses, and a word map was developed, and what our priorities were in terms of our values and what we want to see for the future of our community. But just to back up a minute, they took the old master plan from 1984 and they picked out all of the major words that were in that particular master plan, 30, 40 years ago. And the one word that really peaked out from our current master plan is the word preserve. And then there were all other values around that taken out of the master plan. We were asked questions such as, why do you live in Sparta? What is your favorite park? And that sort of thing. And many of the words that really popped out and were large on the screen from all of us generating this word map were hiking, forest, water, serenity, rural character, aquifer, and so on. So we're going to be having more public hearings, possibly 2 more public hearings, and there is a procedure that we'll go through. Barbara Davis said that she hoped that it would be completed in this fall, and then it will be sent to the Environmental Commission for review, and then, and for comments, and then it'll be passed, I believe, she said, to the town council next, and then for the planning board for inclusion into the master plan, and this inclusion will open up opportunities for us to put together packages of financial support for lands we may consider to be important to preserve and use as we need through Green Acres and various other grant programs. So that was our meeting, and it was very fun and exciting, and I hope that we can do it again with all of you sometime. And yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, we also took a tour of, previous to that, we took a tour of all of Sparta with the Land Conservancy and with officials. And so we looked at all sorts of areas that I didn't even know existed. Little parks, tucked away in various places. And yeah, it was good. And the public was very involved in the meeting. And one area of particular interest was out in the Edison area where this family was envisioning to develop the hiking trails in that area and perhaps linking them with other communities nearby. But all sorts of good ideas. Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
I attended a meeting, and it was very well done, so thank you to everyone who was involved in putting that together.
Thank you.
In terms of the master plan subcommittee, we will be meeting tomorrow night. I want to give a special thanks to Dory and the town manager Jim Zepp for helping us to facilitate that meeting. That was a questionable whether or not we're going to get there. So in terms of a plan forward, in terms of, to answer Celeste's question, we're going to discuss those things tomorrow. We have some challenges we have to get to. I think you're aware what they are, but we do need to come up with a plan, so we'll discuss that tomorrow night and report the results. In terms of the plan endorsement advisory committee, I think originally we had hoped to have a public workshop on July 17th. That's not going to happen, just based on the challenges we've got with hearing all these applications and, more stuff pushing out from where we were tonight. So stay tuned. There'll be more on that in future meetings. And I think that's all I have. Bill, anything on the minor site plan subcommittee or grants?
Yeah, so we did vote to approve the minutes for the all the applications from January to up until I think last week was the last one that'll be included. Those will be available to the public with the minutes of tonight's meeting, whenever Dorian and her office has those prepared. Really excited to see a lot of the work that we did. We took some feedback from the Economic Development Committee in town, and they're starting to make some of the changes, whether it's to the application or some of the processes that we have when people do file for a minor site plan waiver. I think it's really positive to see that we only have a handful of applications that are still undecided. And all of those applications, we are waiting for more information from the applicants in order to either deem it eligible or make a ruling. So kudos to Joan, Christine, Raisha, and Ron, all the people of the MSPS committee. I think we're doing a really great job, and a lot of the businesses that are applying are happy with some of the turnaround that we're having. Tom, we do have a question on a specific application. If it's a new tenant that does not have a new sign, but it's the same use, would that fall under the jurisdiction of the minor site plan committee, or should that be more of a zoning issue?
In other words, the existing sign will just be changed to be the new name? That's the only
Well,
change?
that could be an example, but more specifically, if someone applies and they don't check that they're going to have a new sign, it's
Oh.
just going to be a new tenant, but the same use.
I think that is just the zoning officer. Dory can check, but if they're not doing anything to the exterior of the building and they're not even changed, it's the same type of tenant. I mean, if it's change of use, meaning you can have, if it's a doctor and it's becoming a doctor, that's just a change in tenant, not a change in use. So if it is a change in use, they're supposed to go to the site plan subcommittee.
The one exception there would be in the economic zone. Right now, it has to come to the full board.
Yeah, the only zones we do, the site plan subcommittee are listed in the ordinance, and they are not the ED and not the PDRM1 and not the PDRM2. So the other zones, they go to the site plan subcommittee. But if it's truly just a change in tenant, with the exception of those other zones, the ED zone, the PDRM1 and the PDRM2, then they just go to the zoning officer. Okay.
Thank you. And that concludes my update.
Okay, thanks. So with that, there are no new resolutions other than
I did,
2412.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. As a result of the last hearing on the Fluss Holdings application, you now have decided that site will have that approval. And I would recommend to you that you consider a motion to deny the extension request that was made by Captiva application.
Thank you.
Because it's unnecessary and too confusing and redundant. So, and I think it's a good night to do that. There's no deadlines or anything for extensions to be reviewed, and it's pretty straightforward. Do you feel comfortable? So I would recommend to the board a motion to deny the extension requested by the owner of the property for the Captiva prior approval because it is unnecessary, confusing, and redundant. And so, is there such a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we deny Captiva based on the way you framed it.
I'll second.
Roll call,
Roll
please.
call, please. and I'll-
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumeti?
Yes.
Jeanette Burke?
Yes.
Christine Dunbar?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright?
Yes.
Joan Furman?
Yes.
Celeste Luciano?
Yes.
Ernie Reichstad?
Yes.
Mike Sylvester?
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day?
Yes. Okay, the motion denied is passed.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, we're down to the final section, which is open to the public for matters that are not on the agenda and matters not relating to a hearing on an application for development.
Jenny Derricks, Tap into Sparta. Thank you for discussing the minor site plan subcommittee minutes. That was going to be one of my questions. One question that does refer to this evening, but it's not relevant to the approval. The application Google Drive files that accompany each application for Fluss Holdings previously had letters. Kurt Morris is the fire department, Mr. Simmons' letters. They're all missing. And there's only one letter from Catherine. That was her updated letter. So wondering where they went and can they please be put back?
I don't think they're missing. I think they're in a subfolder that's located at the top of the drive.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That would have been helpful for tonight. What is the status of updating the township maps? Anybody?
Zoning map?
Yes.
That is just about completed. We're checking the area where the PVC overlay zone is over by North Village, just to make sure that's correct with everything that ended up, and we should have that within the next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a clarification I wanted to give you, Ron and Bill, from the business development meeting where it was stated that the requirement that you just spoke about for applicants to come in regardless in the ED zone, that was spoken about as an artifact of the 2101, but in fact it was in the previous, it was in the previous iteration of that zone. So just to clarify that for you. What is the status of the Brownfield Solar Landfill closing project?
Jenny, that's like more of a council question.
That's a council question?
Yeah, I know there's a lot happening right now, so I think you've met with Jim Zepp too about it.
I have
so-
met with Jim Zepp because the BPU denied the Brownfield application.
Yeah, I know there's some meetings and conversations happening.
But that happened in January and that was not made public. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right, so with that, let me thank everybody for staying a little bit later than we planned tonight. We're gonna pull this into 10 o'clock, but just with the backlog, I thought it was important to try to get to those two tonight. So thanks for everyone, including the public, for staying with us. So with that, could I have a motion to adjourn?
You're on, Ernie.
To adjourn.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this meeting's adjourned.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.